Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Archon Team League. Today I am here with Zalay and Gar, and of course I am Liquid Monk. Zalay and Gar, it's the first time you've been casting the Archon Team League. First of all, how are you guys doing today? We'll start with Gar.
I'm doing great. I'm very excited for the upcoming match. I'm actually excited for every single match. I just love to watch every team in Archon League play. Because everyone is trying so hard to win, so it's very fun. Also if people will bring new decks, new broken decks. Always nice.
And Zalay?
Yeah, I'm pretty pumped to be here. I'm really hoping Nihilum will lose so that they can be tied with us for first place.
Yeah, I mean,
That's what I'm looking for.
A lot of the big teams are playing today. Nihilum, of course, is the only team that's 3-0. And we have Value Town, who's doing pretty well as well. With Kibler probably being having the best record so far. So that's certainly an interesting storyline. Yeah, just I want to, for the intro, I want to get your opinion of how Archon League has been going so far for you guys.
For me or for Gara?
You can start, man.
All right, I feel like the team league's going well for Archon as a whole, not for me as an individual, but it's a team game, and we're doing good. So I'm definitely happy about that. 2-1's you always have to be happy with a 2-1 record when you're in playing competitive Hearthstone, and especially in this league when the level of competition is so high. If you're winning 2/3 of your matches, you're doing great. So I have to feel really good about it overall. What about you, Gara?
Yeah, we didn't start off too great, but I think how we played last week was really good, and also the win, and I'm enjoying it to the fullest because you really push yourself, especially when you lose, you try to not give up and
Right.
win next week. It's a lot of fun. It's you just and it's not that punishing, the format. You just don't want to finish last, basically.
Right,
you should
anywhere but last.
Yeah, that's the goal. So you always try, right? Even if you would be 0-3 right now, you would just try to not finish last, I guess.
And you said an
feel
important
you're
thing in
out.
there. You said an important thing in there, which is not focusing on the results so much as on how you played. Whether you win or lose, if you played well, you should be happy with yourself about that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we were just looking at the standings, and pretty much everyone was around the same area, even though one team is 3-0, all the other teams are either 2-1 or 1-2 basically. And it's basically everyone's 5 points with each other, with the possible exception of Team Celestial. They'll have a lot of catching up to do later on today. But today we have to let's go on to the first match. Let's talk a little bit about Nihilum versus Value Town. As you can see, Nihilum and Value Town, they're pretty much the two top teams right now. They've been on fire.
Yeah, there's different storylines. For example, the undefeated Brian Kibler. Everyone will be watching him if he will continue this trend to go 8-0 now. And Nihilum is first place. Everyone will watch will they lose the first match, stuff like that.
Yeah,
pretty fun.
Well, yeah, before we start this league, before we start this very exciting first match, we have to give a shout out to some of our sponsors. The first of which is the Amazon. Basically, if you go to amazon.com/Hearthstone, you can get you can buy Amazon coins, which let you get card packs for much cheaper than you can get them in the normal Blizzard store. So definitely check them out. And before we actually go into the first match, you mentioned, guys, that Brian Kibler is actually the undefeated player in this entire league. I believe the only undefeated player with a 6-0 record. So I think we have a little video showing off what he's all about, what he can do, and his MTG background.
I am Brian Kibler, and I'm playing for Team Value Town. Probably most known in Hearthstone for being one of the original players of Mech Mage, as well as the Death Rattle Priest deck that I played to a second place finish in the Sunshine Open, which was the first ever Hearthstone tournament I played. I think the format of the Team League is really interesting because it makes people switch up, the sort of compositions that they're normally playing in competitive play. Rather than seeing, deck lineups that are mostly Warrior, Warlock, Hunter, and those kind of classes, people have to really, adapt and try and play different styles. And I think the combined skills of our team will lead us to do pretty well. I do play games other than Hearthstone. I'm actually in the Magic the Gathering Hall of Fame. A few trophies up there that you might be able to see. And I still compete in major events for that. I play in all of the Pro Tours as well as some of the sort of semi-pro Grand Prix level events. I just want to say thanks to all the fans out there who support me and my team. It's great having people who root for me in tournaments, whether it's spamming my name in Twitch chat or following me on Twitter, watching my stream. All of it is awesome, and I appreciate all of the support.
Good stuff, guys. Yeah, Kibler, again, he's the only 6-0 player in the league, and I think a part of it is that he's been bringing the same decks every single time. The Shaman deck, his Mech Shaman deck, of course, and his Hunter deck, and people would say that Hunter is like one of the strongest classes in the format, but Shaman's a very unexpected pick, especially coming from Brian Kibler, who he's been playing a lot of Mech Mage, but he's just recently, in the last month or so, been switching over to Mech Shaman.
Yeah, Valuetown's got an interesting lineup here. Most teams bring 5 specific classes, and then it's kind of a hand-up, it's a toss-up which of the last 4 they bring. Usually they don't bring Druid and Shaman. Those are kind of in the bottom 4 classes. So they don't have Rogue, and what's the... Yeah, I guess Rogue is the normal class. Usually you see Rogue, Mage, Hunter, Warlock, and Warrior, I think, on teams. So it's a little bit interesting. No Rogue. They have both Shaman and Druid.
Yeah, pretty much I'd say the Valuetown lineup is pretty much the same as it was last week, with the exception of Dog replacing his Rogue with a Druid. And I'm just wondering like why that might be, because Nihilum is actually known as a team that runs Paladin a lot, and you would expect Valuetown to bring Rogue just to counter like possible Paladins coming from Nihilum. Again, from Nihilum, we're seeing kind of a mix-up again. Instead of bringing Paladin as that like 6th deck as you're referring to, they're bringing Shaman instead, and you would have to expect that's a Mech Shaman.
Yeah, and again, Shaman and Druid on both sides. So maybe there's a shift in the metagame. Maybe there's some new way of thinking about the Shaman class that suddenly people want to bring it, because I think we've been not seeing a lot of Shaman, right?
Yeah, pretty much it's just Valuetown that's bringing Shaman, and they're bringing Mech Shaman every single time. But maybe it's that like the entire league is saying, hey, the Shaman is just the Mech Shaman is going 3-0 that I just have to bring in. And this is really unexpected from Dog. Bringing Mech Mage?
Yeah. Turn 2, 1-drop, turn 1 nothing, not the start you want when you're playing an aggro deck.
Yeah, I mean, this almost looks like a Freeze Mage hand, right? If you just discount the mechs. Like,
wait, did he ping instead of playing the Cogmaster?
I think maybe he's trying to sell that he's actually playing Freeze Mage instead, because Dogs has been playing Freeze Mage in the last all 3 series pretty much of the Archon League. So it just will be a complete surprise for Tice that this is not going to be a Freeze Mage when a Spider Tank comes down on turn 3.
Yeah, it's not a secret for very long, right? I mean, I guess he could sell it now with the Mirror Entity. That might surprise him. But I'm really surprised he didn't play the minion on turn 2. Usually Hearthstone's a pretty easy game, just play those minions, right?
Yeah, especially with like an aggro-ish type of deck like the Mech Mage. Now, I know a lot of people they really like some of the stats that we were like spitting out last week. So Mech Mage versus Oil Rogue, just I had to put it to you guys. You guys play the deck a lot, and if so, like what do you think the matchup is like percentage-wise?
I think it's a close matchup. It's pretty 50-50. I feel like at this point, I feel like the Mech Mage is behind because he's had a slow start. He did nothing on turns 1 and 2. It's really some next level play. The turn 2, no minion, just ping face. I guess disguising the deck like you said. He could have continued with that way of thinking with the Mirror Entity, but now he's playing the Spider Tank.
For me, it's very interesting. Like, I'm thinking, why do you think he decided to bring a Mech Mage in the first place? Like, it doesn't seem like to counter like too many decks in the Archon format.
I think
it might
a lot
just
of players. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, it might just be to throw them off, right? Like you're expecting Freeze Mage, so you show up with Mech Mage. It throws them off this week because they mulligan and prepare for Freeze Mage, and it throws them off in future weeks because they're not as confident preparing for Freeze Mage when they would like to be.
Yeah, it's a very good point.
It's like the Assassin's Blade Rogue, which is becoming more popular.
Yeah, it's like kind of like the Mr. Yagut Rogue, and I think one of the reasons they're deciding to bring Tice with the Mr. Yagut Rogue is that last week when Nihilum faced Liquid, they faced a Rogue versus Freeze Mage matchup in which they pretty much lost because they brought the more standard type of Rogue without Assassin's Blade. And if they had gotten Assassin's Blade with like a few oils on it or a few poisons, I think that deck is much more favored against Freeze Mage. So it's probably a good pick from Nihilum to bring a rogue that includes Assassin's Blade against Team Value Town, who brings Freeze Mage every single time.
Doc's hand is like god awful. Like you really rely on tempo, and he has like nothing. He drew like 3 non-max and double frost bullets and mirror entities. It's like terrible hand.
Yeah, pretty much. Like we haven't seen Mech Mage in a while, but this is like one of the possibly like one of the worst draws I've ever seen from Mech Mage. Oh my god, both secrets. Like sometimes you get like double Mad Scientist and double Mirror Entity, but I would argue this is worse.
This is a bummer for him. I guess the reason he didn't play the minion on turn 2 is he didn't want to run into Coin SI7 agent. That's a really strong play, right?
Yeah, definitely makes sense. Also, like just going back to like the stats, Mech Mage is actually like fairly heavily favored in this matchup if you just go by like how things have played out in Blackrock Mountain. And the matchup is actually 11-5 with a 69% favor to Mech Mage. And I think a lot of that might just be like this, like a lot of it is like maybe the Snow Chuggers, the Neurotrons that prevent a lot of the weapon damage, which Rogue kind of relies on in the early game to deal with threats.
I think anytime I hear stats on how Rogue is performing, I have to ask myself who's playing that Rogue, because Rogue's really a tough class to play well. It's easy to make mistakes and never realize it. And so, like, if somebody's like Purple or Firebat's playing it, I think you're going to see maybe stronger results from the Rogue than otherwise.
Yeah, fair enough. I think like Rogue just competitively, if you just go by stats, it's actually like one of the worst classes, short of only like the Taunt Druid and mid-range Shaman. And like that's like what you said, pretty much like Rogue is one of the hardest classes to play, along with like Patron Warrior, of course, as we all know from UZLA. So it just might be like, it just might be that players, they're not playing it optimally.
Yeah, Rogue is like the most interesting class according to stats, because the stats really don't reflect as well how strong Rogue actually is or how weak Rogue is. I think that's like most of the Rogue players on ladder just lose a ton of games against face hunters. That really like ruins the stats. And it depends on who plays the Rogue, right? Like Rogue has like one of the highest skill caps from the classes.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. Like even though it has like the worst stats, it's still one of the best decks to bring, or one of the best classes to bring.
Yeah, I see a lot of people on the forums, they're saying that like, why is like Rogue ranked so high in every tier list when we first of all never see it on ladder, and second of all just like it doesn't do well when like the normal player plays it. And it's exactly what you guys brought up. It's just such a hard deck that most people can't play it optimally, and it's exactly like that with Patron Warrior, where it's like, again, it's a hard deck, but it's not very well represented on ladder. And this is like probably like the first turn where Dog actually has like a decent play.
Yeah, that was nice.
It's kind of sad.
How does Dog turn this around? Like maybe if he draws Antonidas, he can go Antonidas Frostbolt next turn. He's thinking about whether to play that Cogmaster or not. He's like, does this overcommit into AoE? It's his last minion.
If you just like think about the line, like again, like Nihilum, they've brought Druid, I guess, every single time, so this might be like a counter to Druid. But then again, like the Freeze Mage versus Druid matchup isn't even that bad, and I just have to say, like, maybe this is just for the unpredictability. Like Gara said, like, you just have to finish not last. You just have to finish in the top 7 to advance to the next round. So pretty much, if you can like just throw off your opponents in the future rounds, this might be like worth it to bring suboptimal decks into the regular stage.
Right.
Yeah. Like for me, it's always so interesting to see what people bring or how they like the order of the decks they choose. It's so interesting in this format because there's like so many different. Yeah,
that's
crazy.
Just a crushing play. That really hurts. This Annoyatron though is really helping to keep the mage alive. That Assassin's Blade would be connecting for what, 21 over 3 turns, which is 2 off lethal by itself.
Yeah, just too much damage here. And like it's not like the Mech Mage like really has like too many comeback mechanics. They really don't have any draw cards in their deck at all, besides like maybe 1 or 2 Azure Drakes. So like what Dog has right now is what he's gonna get pretty much.
He needs Antonidas. That draws some fireballs, right?
Yeah.
He's got to protect this Annoyatron so that the weapon doesn't connect with his face too much. Lotheb's obviously a fantastic card against Rogue.
Yeah, that's crazy.
He gets to clear here. Push a little bit of damage.
Yeah, and possibly that was like one of the best turns he could have gotten, right?
Yeah, I like what he's doing here. Turns like that are how he wins this game.
Yeah, and he doesn't have a Blade Fury, so that's like... All he can do is play his own low time. Man, if he picks up a Fireball, this could be over.
This guy's toast.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the thing is, like, he's already used one Fireball, and he's used both Frostbolts, or he has used one Frostbolt, and he has the remaining one in his hand.
Whoa.
Fel Reaver, that's interesting.
That's something new.
That's going to get big game 100 if he plays it, which is really not
Like,
what he's looking for.
Can Dog pick up a Tell? Like, would he would have Ticed Blade Fury last turn if he had it? Like, it would be just 7 mana, so he could do it. He could have cleared the board with a Blade Fury. So, if you Frostbolt's face, that would be like a play where you where you know that your opponent doesn't have a Blade Fury, so you could push in like more damage.
I'm expecting him to play the Fel Reaver here and get wrecked. I'd be surprised if he didn't. That'd be like
Yeah, but Frostbolt is the better play, right? Frostbolt face, like a higher chance to win. It's like a play to win. Frostbolt face. Ferro just gets zapped.
Yeah, I think from our perspective, Frostbolt face is probably slightly better.
I'm just saying for last turn. If he had a
knowing
Blade
the
Fury,
Big Game Hunter, it's obviously way better, but without knowing about the Big Game Hunter, the Fel Reaver I think makes a lot of sense.
I would expect a zap, not a Big Game Hunt, obviously. Big Game Hunt is crazy. If he would have Frostbolt face, he could have set up lethal.
Yeah. And you know the other thing right now is that because the Fel Reaver is on the board, if Tice is so confident that he can just win this game, he can just use as many cards as he can and then reveal Dog's entire deck.
Your prep is crazy in this situation.
How many cards does he get to burn here? Does he get to play his entire hand? So he gets to play 6 cards, burning 18.
Yeah, and that just
How many
might
cards
be
does that leave in the deck? Probably not many. But if it's more than... Oh, Antonidas is gone.
That's so
Have we seen
crazy.
any fireballs?
He's used one Fireball, he hasn't burned any yet. And there's the second Fel Reaver.
That's so nice we see that deck here.
Dog just shaking his head. Watching all his dreams go down.
Yeah, he's not going to love seeing this last card either.
Yeah.
You know, that's actually a pretty smart pick from Team Nihilum because they're bringing BGH against you would have to think like Trump is bringing Hamlock, Kibler is bringing Mech Shaman, which has around 4 BGH targets. Yeah, and this is just completely over.
That is such a crushing win. Like, you don't just win, but you also like reveal the entire deck, revealing pepperonis.
Because they can try and bully this Mech Mage, right, over the course of the series.
Yeah. And you know, you have to remember that there is, of course, a bench rule instated in Archon League, which means that if Dog queues up again with either his mage or his other deck, and he loses with that deck, then Dog cannot play unless one of his teammates wins another game. So it might be a consideration that Dog might not be one of the best players to send out in the next match. Do you guys like consider that early when you're picking players, or is it just like, hey, the early game or the early few matches doesn't really matter as much?
Every match definitely matters. You're definitely thinking about that. You're willing to queue a player who's lost, but you're less likely to do so, is the way I see it. What do you think, Gara?
Yeah, I can't really reveal the strategy, but it's obviously something you have to consider every time because, yeah, especially early. Maybe actually later on, it's a bigger deal if someone gets benched because it's easier to counterpick. Like if someone, like one teammate has already 2 wins, right? And then you get benched, it's like very easy to counterpick the last 2 decks. Yeah, you definitely don't want to get benched at that point. It's something you consider, but when you really think about it, when your opponent expects you to like change to another player, then it's probably better to keep on playing and really hope you win the next match. It's like the mind games, right?
Yeah, pretty much. And let's going back to just all the classes that were selected, you would have to think that Rogue, I guess Rogue like might be one of the weaker decks against Value Town, so it was kind of expected, or it's really nice for them to get it out of the way. Hunter, depending on what version it is, it can be favored against Rogue. Shaman and both the Mech Shaman and the Mech Mage, I would argue would be slightly favored, and I would even argue that the Druid would be favored in terms of stats. But of course, again, Rogue dedicated players like Dog, Firebat, Purple, they would argue that the Rogue is favored against anything. But
all the little things are so interesting to me. For example, that you decided to play Shaman over Paladin, for example. Like, he's very convinced that Aggro Paladin is like the strongest aggro deck right now. And then like pick, if this is Mech Shaman, which we obviously expect, right, from Adio, like why would you pick a weaker aggro deck over your stronger one? Like,
He must have changed his mind, right? About what the strongest deck is.
Yeah.
I think
It's
yeah, it also might be that I guess Mech Shaman and Aggro Paladin have like slightly different matchups and how they play out. I would argue that like Mech Shaman is a lot better against Druid, for example. But
that's not true. But the clear matchups, in my opinion, are Patron Warrior and Rogue, because like a Mech Shaman is much better against Rogue than Paladin. Like Paladin is like unfavored against that, and Paladin is bad against Patron. Like if they have a Whirlwind, usually you lose. But Mech Shaman is like coin flippy. But Druid is pretty even. Like I played like a lot of aggro decks. That's why I know.
They both beat up Druid, you think?
Yeah,
I really agree with what you're saying about Mech Shaman being better against the Rogue and the Warrior, and we're seeing a lot of that in this league, so it makes sense.
It's mainly Doomhammer, right? Because Rogue can't really deal with it. You don't have taunts, and usually you just like combo minions on board with like backstab and stuff. But if you just play a Doomhammer and hit him for like 16 damage, and then remove the board because Rogue doesn't play too many minions, it's actually pretty easy to kill the minions from Rogue. You just deal damage every turn, right? Like a lot of damage. So you just raise him. That's why. But Paladin has to get board control.
I feel like no matter what the aggro deck, this is kind of the week of the aggro decks, because at DreamHack of Valencia over the weekend, the two Dignitas brothers, the Green Sheep and Blackout, they both made the finals with pretty much like both played two aggro decks and Patron Warrior. And so like I think a lot of teams, because of that result, are respecting the aggro deck slightly more.
Yeah, I played there. Like I got into top 8 and I played against Green Sheep. He just had like the stronger aggro lineup. It was like a mirror match basically, but he had the stronger aggro decks.
Oh,
here's the like what I see one. Here. I'm looking forward to this. Kibler with Shaman. Kibler's undefeated. I think Shaman's favored against Warlock. I really want to see Life Coach go down. This can be good.
Oh, why do you want to see Life Coach go down? Are you trying to race for like the top placing, or do you just want to cheer against Nihilum, basically?
Well, yes. I mean, Nihilum's the one team that's beaten us, right? So I definitely need to see them go down.
Yeah. And you know what? Even though Nihilum has a 3-0 record, they're winning like 6-5 every single time. So like their score differential isn't as high as like you might expect. So if they lose one match, they can just get sent straight to something like 5th place, basically.
Ooh, that sounds good to me. I like this. And Kibler's undefeated, and he's got a favorable matchup. Everything's perfect here. So if Kibler wins this, what's his record in the league? Does that make him 7-0 in games?
Yeah, 7-0, which is pretty wild, especially because I think a lot of players going in, or a lot of like viewers going into Archon League would maybe peg Kibler as like one of the weaker players, because he hasn't done too well in tournaments, especially like the Kingwin Pro League, for example, where he finished somewhere in like the bottom 2 or 3 of his group.
You know what's the best part? I probably hasn't changed the Shaman list in all weeks. Like he's playing the same list and just owning it up.
Life Coach kept that big game hunter, right? He's expecting Fel Reavers.
Oh,
Looks
yeah,
like
definitely.
it might pay off for him this game.
Yeah, I wonder
he kept it?
Yeah, he kept the big BGH.
That's crazy, right?
And he didn't Dark Bomb the Cog. He wants to save it for like a Zap-O-Matic.
Yeah. I think
like usually, yeah. I'm just saying, like usually when you have like Zap-O-Matic and Mech Whopper, you try out to bait out the Dark Bomb with the Mech Whopper, because you don't really have a crazy curve anyways. And then if they do it, they get wrecked by Zap-O-Matic. Sometimes you get those crazy turn 3, turn 4 kills with Zap-O-Matic against Handlock, because they have to life tab.
Yeah, we all remember that dream hack where Firebat got a turn 3 kill, right?
I had also one in Valencia. Power
nice.
Mace into Zapomatic, Rockbiter, Flame Tongue, dead.
Yeah, and that's just something about Mech Shaman. It's just, it can be so good sometimes. You can just steal those early wins.
I think I actually have a 100% win rate with Shaman in tournaments. Somebody told me, because I think I've played like 1 or 2 games with it.
Yeah, nice.
Just got there every time.
You can never play Shaman again.
Yeah, I'm done.
Yeah, and then they released like Quartermaster for totems. It's coming.
So what do you think about this Hellfire?
You have to. Or
Yeah,
you're
takes
dead.
9 damage off the board. That's a
If
good
if
amount.
Zapomatic at this life total, if Zapomatic lives, you're dead. He doesn't even need so much. Like Rockbiter Cracker will be enough. With the other stuff.
He literally dies if he just plays Mountain Giant.
Yeah. Oh, he's thinking about Nah, you can't be greedy. Not against Zapomatic. Against everything else, but not against Zapomatic. It's like the craziest thing.
He's
Rockbiter
life
I'm
coach.
going to him.
He's always going to think about it, right? He's not going to do it,
Yeah.
but he's going to think about it.
Yeah.
We simply Hellfire.
He really wants to get his Molten out. Every game.
Yeah.
He keeps it in every matchup. Like he keeps Molten against Control Warrior as well.
Wow, really?
Yeah, it's
I've
crazy how
never
how he
seen that.
thinks.
And now, like, Life Coach can possibly actually stabilize fairly easily with the BGH that he kept in his opening hand. Actually made a huge difference. And I think it actually makes a lot of sense because you'd have to think Life Coach probably practiced his matchup for Archon League, especially since he knew that Valley Town would be his team's next opponent. So if you get a Fell Reaver on the board and pretty much Handlock doesn't have a BGH, like, what can they really do? They just die, right? If the 8 damage connects to face, you have to think that the Mech Shaman also has some burst in his hand. And when you're sitting at 16 life total, if Life Coach didn't have the BGH, he would just like be dead.
Yeah.
This
So
is
that mulligan
this is-
decision really paying off.
this is a difficult turn. I would just totem up. You need spell power totem. Like if you get spell power totem, you have a pretty good chance to win. But you totem first, obviously, before you flame tongue. Doesn't matter, I guess. I wonder if it would be because you expect turn 5 Sludge Belcher. I wonder if it's like better to get the Rock Biter out as well, because you have already Lava Burst, Crackle. If you just play Sludge Belcher, he has 10 life. You have at least like 50% to kill him if you don't get a roll of totem, like 33% to get a spell power totem, because totem will survive if you don't top deck like another spell.
Okay.
So I would
Yeah.
went for the Rock Biter. It's just likely, even if he has Molten Giant, it's likely he plays Molten Giant Sludge Belcher and not Molten Giant Healbot, because you have a board, right? So he can't clear and taunt up and heal everything.
Yeah.
So it
So
was a
this turn-
misplay, I think.
This turn, it's like Molten Giant with Sun Fury or Dark Bomb.
Feels so weak though. Oh my god, it's half.
Wow,
That's
life coach for you. That's life coach for you.
This-
Wow, he even lets 1 damage on the board. He's dead, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's
Is that
definitely
out of
dead.
hand?
Yeah, he has also the coin. He's dead.
Yeah.
He needs
Wow.
like no, he doesn't need anything. It's 8. Yeah, he doesn't need.
And just really surprising there.
And
Life
he
Coach
looks
actually
very
seemed surprised.
Still lethal.
You know what's crazy? He looks very surprised about that burst damage.
Yeah. What was he expecting? It's Mech Shaman.
Yeah, exactly. And like, if you just think about like the line of plays, I think if Kibler actually played the Fell Reaver on curve on turn 5, he might have lost because of the swing of the BGH. So like, really forward thinking. Like, a lot of people say that aggro decks, especially like Mech Shaman, they're like very linear and there's not much decision making involved. But that key decision made by Kibler on turn 4 pretty much like guaranteed him the game right there, which is really surprising. You know what? Kibler moves on to 7-0. He's already the Dragon Master, so he's definitely going for that title of Master of Duels as well.
Still undefeated. Easy.
He's just crushing it.
Unstoppable.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, who can stop him right now? Like, I'm not sure like if anyone is near even his record. Chalky
Well, I know
was probably
Firebat's
like
went off. He's just
Okay,
got one
Firebat.
loss.
So Firebat is 6-1. And I think Chalky, he's something like Chalky last week he started off with 4-0. He didn't do so well last week. So right now I believe he's something like 5-3.
And
like,
he also he didn't get to play his last deck, right?
I think he did, but he lost.
Yeah.
Oh, also Nyria. How could I forget? Nyria is also at 6-1, getting only one loss with the Rogue, but otherwise he's been doing really well lately.
But Life Coach was really good, like before he lost this, like in terms of stats, right? He was
Yeah,
undefeated as well last week. But then
Life Coach. Life Coach got a few losses under his belt last week. He lost to Druid Mirror. He lost Handlock versus Patron, and I think he got at least like 2 or 3 losses last week. So he's still in the standings, but he lost a game yet again this week. So it might not be going the best for him. But you know what? This is like pretty much what this league is all about. Players can bring like the same decks over and over again. They can specialize in these decks. And Kibler having the chance to play Mech Shaman every single week, he's certainly an expert on the deck.
I mean, he's doing like he's not even changing the list, and people know what he's going to bring, but he doesn't care. He's just winning.
Yeah, I've been researching his. Yeah, I've been researching his list, and he's basically has like a standard Mech Shaman, but he takes out the Doomhammer and replaces it with like a mechanical Yeti, pretty much. And
I
it's
see.
probably because he's like in this format, there's a lot of weapon classes. So he's probably really afraid of weapon removal in the form of oozes and Harrisons. And we've seen like pretty much Harrisons in half the decks in Archon League. And
It's so funny
oozes
when
in a
you
few as well.
It's so funny when you think about how old the list is. Like Sixto brought it to Seed Story, and like since then, it's like basically the same list. He just changed one card, and it's still doing so good. And nobody else is playing it. So
now, this
funny.
is really 2 good matchups in a row for Value Town, right? We have the Mech Mage against Druid. This is pretty much, again, exactly what Value Town wants to
This
beat
is
Nihilum.
that is exactly 100% the matchup they want for the Mech Mage.
So maybe they're a
a lot
little
of-
bit in Nihilum's head for the queuing system. Or maybe they're just getting lucky.
Probably a little bit of both.
Yeah.
You can't like blame it all on luck or all on skill and
Right.
Hearthstone anytime.
When you think
But,
about the thing is you really try to get your win with Druid somehow, right? And it's like interesting to see like the strategy behind it, because they know there's like so many bad matchups for the Druid, so you kind of try to sneak in the win, and they call them with the Mech Mage.
Yeah, exactly. And it's usually like Druid is that like 6th class. Pretty much in this format, every team is bringing like the top 3 classes, which are Warlock, Warrior, and Hunter. Then they kind of think about the 4th class, which is usually Freeze Mage, simply because of the lack of warriors in this format compared to in their standard Conquest format, where 1 of 3 decks is Warrior. In this format, it's only 1 of 6 decks is Warrior. And then after those 4 classes, maybe you're thinking Rogue is pretty good, Druid is pretty good, Paladin maybe, but it's always that 6 decks that struggles to get wins. I remember in Liquid versus who was the second team that we faced?
No wild growth, no innovate.
Yeah, exactly.
Bible
No
Temp.
wild growth, no innervate all the time.
Bible
And
Temp.
the
This is
Druid
like-
just got swept 0-5.
This game is like the opposite of Dog's last Mech Mage game. Now Dog
Yeah.
has a great curve, a great matchup. His opponent doesn't have Innervate, doesn't have Wild Growth.
And he has the
I'm
Mad
wondering,
Scientist.
what's Dog's next play? Like, he could coin Spider Tank into Tinkertown, that's really strong, but getting Scientist out is also really strong against Druid because the Mirror Entity is always a real pain in the butt for Druid to deal with.
Oh yes.
Yeah, and the Druid's hand is so awful.
Okay, he just
So I
wants to
think-
hit hard. Good choice.
It's a very strong tempo play, right? Getting the 4/4 next turn is just way too strong.
Yeah.
Yeah, this matchup, we've been alluding to that it's very favored for the Mech Mage, and in fact, the record shows that it's 17-12 with a 59% win rate for the Mech Mage. And I think a lot of people, when they're thinking about these stats, they would probably expect it to be a lot more favored for the Mech Mage, but I think in reality, most people overestimate matchups. Most matchups are probably like slightly closer than what most people say.
Yeah, people like to exaggerate. I think that's a good point you just made. Where are we pulling these statistics from? Like, can we see these somewhere?
They're in my head somewhere.
Top secret? Okay. Can you tell me what games are counted for this?
It's pretty much every broadcasted game from Blackrock Mountain onwards.
Okay.
Oh man, this is just
Something needs tinkering?
so sick.
Yeah, it's like pretty much every turn, Dog is developing something, and Tice is forced to respond to it. And that's really interesting as well. Tice brought 2 BGHs in his Druid deck, and we already saw a BGH in his Rogue deck. So I'm not really like
It's because of they probably targeted the handlock, right? Because of Trump, like he brought handlock 100% of the time. Same for Life Coach. So they kind of wanted to get like multiple wins against that, I guess.
Yeah, but the
It
thing
can
is,
still happen.
I think Trump's not even guaranteed to bring handlock this time because Trump is one of those players that knows the value of mixing it up quite often.
Actually, Trump improved like a lot in tournaments. You could also see it like in the Vulcan League and stuff. Like he brought like a huge variety of decks. He also played Rogue, for example, which you would not expect.
So this is a Force of Nature turn. We're just going to clear as much as we can. Because we're dying.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're definitely
and you will
dead.
probably still die.
Yeah.
I
You
think
gotta try, man. You gotta try.
Life of a druid, man.
I think
Get
if
so hard. Get so far. Die anyways.
if Tice were maybe at like had 5 more health, he would go for the Emperor play, because like you have to come back somehow, and I feel like Force of Nature just isn't a winning play.
Yeah, it's really not a winning play, right? Even though you die to so much, because like like you can't kill the mad scientist. You can't get him a mirror entity because then you lose like 100% sure.
Yeah,
But like, how do we win now?
I like that
Well-
sequencing. He was testing for duplicate. Gonna duplicate
Yeah,
the
that's-
clockwork now.
yeah. I was gonna say, Dog. He didn't have like too much of a play on turn 6, but I think he's pretty happy with this. Like, as long as he gets any minion, and he's able to like buff some of them up with some spells, I think this is probably what he wants. He's seen that Tice, he's used a lot of spells already with the swipe, for example, and Force of Nature. So he probably has a lot of clunky minions in his hand that he can't play because of the mirror entity.
If he draws like a taunt, like a Senjin, which is probably not in his deck, there's a small chance because he will probably like play a BGH, give his opponent a BGH now. Then he will probably play Dr. Swag, and if both bombs hit for 1, and then he gets like a series of taunts, and both fireballs and both frostbolts are in the bottom of his deck, there's hope.
Wow, Gara just suggested that Boombots hit for 1. When does that ever happen?
I'm just saying that a lot of things have to go right here.
So if you're Tice, do you just say this has to be a counterspell for me to win this game and just like play Dr. Boom, or
He had to think about that. He had to think about that last turn where he killed the mad scientist.
I think
It's
what
like
Tice might be thinking is that he there's okay, so Tice has 3 spare, or rather Dog has 3 spare parts in his hand, and if he has like just 1 card that is just sitting in his hand the entire time, maybe it's like a Frostbolt, and I think that would be the worst case scenario. And if it's a Frostbolt, then maybe he has a chance with this board.
The saddest part is you give your opponent a stronger shade as well with mirror entity. That's so unfair.
Yeah, that's always
Blizzard
really
nerf.
sad. And you know what? Most of these lists these days, because Mech Mage isn't as common, these lists, they don't include Zombie Chows, the Druid list that is. So there's like not really much that you can like run
No,
Mirror Entity into.
That's really a big deal.
this is a sad moment to be a druid. You have the BGH for Dr. Boom, and it's probably not good enough.
You know, there
Yeah.
is a strategy where you basically don't show the second BGH, and then you queue up with this deck again because the stream is on like sort of a delay, and like the other team won't be able to scout the second BGH pretty much. Is there any merit to that?
I wouldn't, like, if I were playing the druid here, I wouldn't be ready to give up on it yet. I'd still want to press buttons and just believe.
Yep, of course he still does have that BGH, so swing turns are possible. But you have to
Really?
feel like he needs like a heal bot soon or something, and druids
I mean,
don't run that.
That's so frustrating. You can't even hear power down those boombots. This game is just sad.
Yes,
Oh.
step 1. We needed
It's
that.
Zara, the prophecy is
never
coming true.
I've never seen boombots not going for BGH, right? Those boombots really hate BGH. Whenever I'm like casting a game or playing, they always go for their BGH.
Oh yeah, went for the BGH again. Full clear, standard Boombot stuff.
Yeah, revenge for their master.
This is the only outcome possible, honestly. Ooh, Shredder positioning. Put it in the middle.
Oh, clear misplay.
That's really gonna change things.
Oh,
Gains
there's
some
the
life.
heal.
The
Probably wanted to
frustrating,
taunt.
the frustrating heal again. We heal for 5 and it does nothing.
Yeah, a lot of like this matchup isn't as common these days, but a lot of the time it was all about Mech Mage getting an early lead, and then Druid like somewhat stabilizing at around like 3 or 4 health. Then the Mage has to top deck something, but I don't think this is going to be one of those games.
You obviously reverse switch and ping phase.
Yeah, put him down to 1 so that you can kill him through a taunt. He has to armor up.
And both, like, the minion is frozen and the hero is frozen. What can he possibly do? And he can't use spells.
And you have Time Rewinder. That doesn't matter.
Yeah,
Is
just
there like
going
any
through-
card? Oh yeah, Deathwing. But if you would put him down to 1, he can't even Deathwing. Because he would die to hero power.
So Dog playing around Deathwing here.
And he needs the Shredder to be a Doomsayer from the Deathwing. Or actually like a 0/05 or something. 0/03 or totem, whatever.
Yeah,
And then
so
he would
Mech
still die
Mage,
to hero power.
Mech Mage getting a win here. And, you know, not only do we have to, like, kind of question the Mech Mage decision, we have to question why did he bring Mech Mage instead of Tempo Mage as well? Because I think, like, 90% of players would argue that Tempo Mage is, like, the slightly stronger aggro mage deck. Do you guys have any insight on that?
What I know is, like, I'm not playing on NA, but it's actually getting more popular. Actually, for like 2 weeks now, Mech Mage or new versions of Mech Mage on NA. You probably have more insight about that, Zalay.
I don't have much to say about either deck, other than that they're not as good as Patron.
Like on EU, you haven't seen Mech Mage for like 2 months or something, 3 months. I don't know. It's like
I
that.
see a little bit of everything here and there.
Yeah, I don't
It's
think
what-
Zalay actually pays attention to the decks that he's queuing into. He's just like, I'm queuing into Patron Warrior. I'm all about Patron Warrior. I don't care
It's
about
just
anything
yeah.
else.
It's like Patron and another deck, right? It's like a random deck.
I mean, I have to decide how to attack. Like, do I want Harrison Jones, whatever? But I'm not gonna be scared of these mage decks like ever. Sometimes they
I
win.
think-
It's fun.
I think statistically, just like Mage does really, or these like kind of Mech Mages, they do really well against weapon classes. Like when I was compiling like the stats, I was really amazed at how favored Mech Mage was against Control Warrior. It was like 71%, for example.
Wow.
And like you wouldn't expect that because
No.
like you would figure it's like a much more even matchup. But I think it's just that like the Neurotrons and the Snow Chuggers, because they really lock Warriors out of turn 4 for the Death Spite, it actually makes like a huge difference.
71% like that's like one of the more lopsided matchups in Hearthstone. Then
Yeah, definitely.
like not
like
the
there's
most,
only
but it's like probably like top 5 or something. Top 10.
I think there's like no, yeah, top 10 is about fair. I think. Yeah, like I think like pretty much like you have Control Warrior versus Freeze Mage. It's like
Oh,
one of the
yeah.
biggest. Handlock versus Priest, but yeah, definitely Mech Mage versus Control Warrior. It's definitely up there. It's one of those that's like really unexpected.
Anyways, I think that was like a huge win for Value Town.
Oh,
The Mech Mage. Like, I think we talked about it like last week. There's like decks where you just expect to get wins, like on Patron Warrior or Hunter, and there's like really big wins. And I think like for the Mech Mage to get a win against Druid is like a big one,
Yeah.
like a very important one.
But you know what? Nihilum is actually very used to coming back from behind. I think in pretty much all of their series, they went down with like a fairly substantial, not an anti-lead pretty much. Like for example, against Liquid, they were down 5-2 or 2-5. And pretty much like everyone had to beat Show's Patron Warrior, which unfortunately they did. In the first week, pretty much it was like up to RDU to like climb back, and he just like couldn't get the last win. But in
Against
the end,
Archon,
he
right?
prevailed.
It was
yeah,
like
against
6-5.
Yeah, I don't
So
want
they
to talk
have-
about that. So, do you think maybe Trump will queue Warlock here because they're expecting to not see Druid out of Nihilum, and so with Druid being unlikely, Warlock's maybe a little bit of a better pick?
It's really scary, right? Because they saw the BGH in Rogue, they saw the BGH in Druid, the double
Yeah.
BGH in Druid. Maybe Life Coach has like one BGH in Patron. Like sometimes you see that as well. If that's the case as well, and double BGH handlock, it's really scary. Like he might not get a win on that Warlock. And he had
Yeah,
that
'cause-
problem. And he had the problem before with Paladin, right? Like last week, where he got like 4 losses or so with Control Paladin. So there
It's a
will be
bad
like
feeling.
a deja vu.
Yeah. And you know what? Life Coach is he's known for handlock, but he's also known for bringing a slightly different handlock list every single time. Not only like every single time to Archon League, but to like literally every tournament, he brings a slightly different handlock. And something like double BGH is actually fairly common for him. Not these days, but back in the day when handlock and Control Warrior were the most dominant decks.
I wanna see Trump playing Zoom, man. That would be so funny. That would be so awesome. Like their quadruple BGH tags and just
Yeah.
plays Zoo easy.
Zoo
Trump
can
is
be
actually
pretty weak to BGH.
Ah, it's true. There's like a few BGH targets in Zoo these days with Dr. Boom, Melganis, and even sometimes Sea Giants.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's true. But he will not bring those because he's super smart.
Yeah, I think actually last year Trump was actually known for alternating between handlock and Zoo in every single tournament. This was around the first WEC qualifiers, I believe.
Yeah,
around
he
that
also
time.
played Malilock. Yeah. He really
Yeah,
plays
and he-
everything.
Exactly. And I think like I have to give a lot of credit to Trump. He's been winning a lot of stuff, and a part of it is because he's been mixing it up, and he's also like been less afraid to bring classes that like he thought were too hard at first. For example, Freeze Mage and Rogue. He's been playing more of those decks these days even. Maybe not in tournaments, but at least on streams.
Oh, this is also the first time in Archon League he brings Control Warrior, right?
Who's favored
Yeah.
here, Control Warrior or the handlock?
I think it's one of those matchups where it depends who you ask. If you ask a Control Warrior player, they'll say Control Warrior. I think like
Let's
Show and
let's ask
Show and
let's ask Kids Cuts who's favorite here.
Yeah, exactly. I think Show and Life Coach actually had this debate once where Life Coach was saying that it's like 80% favored for the handlock, and Show was saying it's like almost the same for the Control Warrior.
Right, and
But,
so I think it's just about tech cards and who's playing and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think it's a close
It's-
matchup.
If you
I
want the
think it's
actual
very
stats,
close.
Yeah.
it's 13 and 10 in favor of the handlock, so 57% for handlock.
Okay. Handlock does have the more consistent draw engine.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So I guess like by nature, just because of the hero power, you're like favored. Because you will not run out of cards, and the warrior can just draw poorly and just
Oh,
has
it's a shredder.
Oh, that's very interesting.
So it's a little
But
bit
you-
more mid-rangey, this Control Warrior.
Yeah, so I think like because Trump has the shredder in his deck, it actually might favor the handlock slightly more because you would have to think to replace the shredder or to fit the shredder in, then you have to take out like some of your bigger threats. Like those are what's usually cut for the shredder. And I think a lot about the matchup is like how big of threats you curve into. Like for example, like Ysera is pretty big, and some of these decks, like some of the less greedy versions, they don't have Ysera.
But he
And
drew
Ysera
both
is
acolytes already, so
Yeah.
that's like very huge in this matchup to have like your card draw engine as soon as possible.
I think
I think
people
Ysera-
underestimate that in general, actually.
I think
Having
Ysera
the
is a
draw
good
engine
example of a key card and how this matchup depends on tech cards. Because it's not just a big threat and card advantage. It also threatens, it just makes it a lot harder for the handlock player to play safe around Grom Lethals with Ysera Awakens, Nightmare, and Dream are all extremely threatening and just really, it's a lot harder for the Warlock to play safe. He's in a lot of danger at all times if you ever have any Dream card in your hand, any Nightmare card.
Yeah, exactly. And like sometimes you just have to kind of ignore the dream card because you can't play around Ysera Awakens or Nightmare. Ysera Awakens is also like kind of like the auto win card. Like sometimes when you play Ysera in this matchup, it's like I have a 1 in 5 chance of winning the matchup immediately.
That's why it's also so difficult to say who's favorite in this matchup. There's like all those small little RNG effects. For example, he plays double Molten Giant and then you toss out an Armorsmith Brawl and your Armorsmith wins. It's like the value you get from that Brawl is just ridiculous, right? And or you play a Ragnaros and kill a Giant, for example. Or if a Ragnaros misses, all those situations like affect the game, the outcome of the game so much.
So this is kind of funny because both sides are staring at a Belcher and just very inefficient trades into it. And it's like, I'm really good at doing 4 damage. That thing has 5 toughness? That's a bummer.
Yeah, Defender Vargas, Mortal Quill, all those would be nice, especially since Life Coach is known for running 2 Argus in his decks. But here's an interesting dynamic, actually. Trump has a Harrison Jones in his hand, but Life Coach is very known for not bringing Jiraxis in his handlock decks. Like, I don't believe he's used it in a list besides, like, Demon handlock lists for, like, 2 or 3 months. And instead, he just has, like, the Ragnaros as the big threat. So I'm really curious to see if, like, eventually, if this game goes into the late game, how long will Trump hold on to that Harrison Jones?
Yeah, he really hates Jiraxis.
Now, Brawl's a key card because it lets you hit that handlock in the face more aggressively. If he plays a bunch of Molten Giants, you don't even care, you just Brawl it, right?
Yeah. Not only that, because Control Warriors, they're all attacking against Patron Warriors these days, they pretty much all include, like, double Brawl, which I think, like, is really good in this matchup. Just gives you 2 chances to clear off those Molten Giants.
Right.
He's valuing their Armor Smith.
So that's 10 cards in hand.
Dr. Boom is green.
Ooh, and he has 7 mana crystals this turn? I like that.
Maybe he doesn't see it because it's like on the edge.
Yeah, maybe he doesn't see it. Yeah. It's one of those turns where you sit there, evaluate all the options, and then...
He's like going over the cards, and now he found him. It's like, oh, there's
excellent. Excellent play there.
You know, you kind of laugh at that, but there was this one time in a tournament where I actually like did not see one of the cards in my hand because I was so nervous.
Oh man, it can happen. I mean, if you play enough tournament games, that'll happen to anyone.
Yeah, if you have 10 cards in your hand, like, and you have like like half of them are combo cards, like even 3/3, then you just might miss something. Like my lethal miss against LA in HTC, but we don't want to talk about that.
Speak to me.
So we're getting a lot of value out of this Deathbite Whirlwind here.
Yeah, it's really nice. I'm gonna call it.
Oh,
I guess that was like kind of close. It had 2 attack, but I think actually this is really good for Trump because he's able to deal with like one of like the big threats, Dr. Boom, that's a 7/7, without using one of his executes, without using one of his shield slams or even BGH. So now Trump has even more answers against Life Coach's deck.
But he didn't find a shield slam or a execute yet, right? That's kind of lucky.
I feel like the Control Warrior is pretty favored here. Things are going well for him. He's got the Acera, he's got the Brawl. Nothing really bad has happened.
And he still has so many removals left.
He's drawing cards from Acolytes, which is so important for him to win the game.
Yeah. I think it's like the most important. He got double Acolyte in his starting hand, and there was not like Giant into Drake into Drake.
And there wasn't Foul.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think like how the hands matched up really favored Trump because Life Coach, he didn't get the big threats, but Trump, he also didn't get the answers, but instead he got the card draw. So like card draw was exactly what he needed, and he actually didn't need the answers early on.
And he probably doesn't run Silence. When you run Shredders and Isera and all that stuff, Ragnaros, I don't think he runs an Owl. So that Sylvanas might be annoying.
I like that Sun Fury play, making it harder to get to Sylvanas.
Yeah. There you can see like how experienced of a player Life Coach is. He really knows that this is like very difficult to get rid of now.
Oh, still these unlucky draws again. Trump, no answers.
That hurts. You really want to save the Brawl for at least one Molten. But there's no choice. If Sylvanas survives here...
Armor Smith.
Kit Kat's never lies.
Yeah. Kit Kat's always right.
Yeah, but like you said, like the first Brawl is gone. But at least these days, like Life Coach knows that everyone's running 2 Brawls, so he'll have to play around the second Brawl as well.
Wait, Life Coach doesn't run Siphon Soul, right? And only one Owl. So that Isera will be huge.
Exactly. Yeah, no one's like Life Coach. I think is like one of the only players who only runs 1 Owl, and I think a part of it is because of his mentality to pretty much never silence your own Watchers. So he realizes that like, hey, if I'm never silencing my own Watchers, then why am I having like 2 Owls in here?
But Life Coach must be right? Because most people would say that he's like currently the best handlock player in the world.
Yeah, definitely.
So 10 cards in hand.
It's so funny. Whenever I see this, it's always like the case with Malilock. they have like 10 cards in their hand. It's like 1/3 of your deck, and you have no play.
Yeah, just a
This
whole
is
bunch
actually-
of awkward situational stuff.
It's pretty common in handlock, like especially in these like control mirrors, where like you have like every situational card and like we said, double BGH. In,
yeah,
Life
yeah.
Coach's hand.
Yeah, this is the first time we see it. Like it's so much BGA. They really target from handlocks. Man, I really want to see like a Malilok or a Suf.
Oh, this is a huge play. Ysera comes down. It's really tough to answer here. Is there anything he can do about it? Like if he gets desperate, can he clear it?
Yes, he can Mountain Giant, Shadow Flame.
Oh, you can
Dark
see in
Bomb.
Life Coach's face. You can see in Life Coach's
Yeah.
face.
He's
this
like,
is really
oh
something.
god. This is
Like he's
brutal.
considering so many things. Like Life Coach just like maps about everything, right? And this is really something you didn't expect for sure. Oh, this is bad.
So okay, I like this play. Basically, he's saying like I can't win in the long game.
Yeah.
I pretty much like just have to put all my threats out there. I hope he doesn't have a
He
second
saw-
brawl, and
Yeah. He saw the brawl. Usually don't expect 2 brawls.
I think you do expect 2 brawls, but he's not in a spot to play around much, right? He's losing. He's got to take some risks. Play to win.
It's difficult, right? When someone plays a Shredder and Ysera, there's really like very, very little room
Okay.
for attacking in Control Warrior.
Yeah, the Shredder is a good point, but still, like 2 brawls is very common
Yeah.
in Control Warrior these days.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't think I've seen a list without 2 brawls recently.
Okay, that's good. But would like you
We're rooting for Trump here, right? So this is good.
Okay. Yeah, as a caster, you always want to root for the player whose turn it is.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
he knew that he has no removal in his hand, and he was like very emotional about that shield Sandra.
That's a lot
Because-
of burst in hand.
because
those things cost
execute-
0.
Execute wouldn't help him because he has like no enabler for him, and we haven't seen Whirlwind yet. He might cut those.
So he
Oh,
can
well,
kill Ysera. It's okay now. But
But he
there's
got
those 2
2
dream
cards
cards
from
there.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
those are gonna win the game eventually.
yeah. Nightmare is as strong as Awakens.
Like Dream
Like,
plus
he can-
Nightmare, there's no way you're gonna play around the Gromash with those cards forever. It's gonna come.
Yeah. Individually, I don't think they're as strong as Awakens, but together they're just like they're putting your opponent on a clock for when Grom happens.
It's like a 20 damage Grom out of nowhere, and you can remove a taunt for free. It's like ridiculously strong.
So does our giant trade into Ysera and then we Shadow Flame it, or
We can consider
also-
Shadow Flaming the Watcher as well.
right?
Oh,
Well, hello, Mr. Owl.
I think. All right, he's going for it.
Ouch.
Shields up.
Taunts both doesn't feel very safe.
Yeah. I mean,
That's
yeah,
a big top deck.
that's huge. Yeah.
Like 2 turns in a row for Trump.
Right now, he's just waiting for Grom, basically. It's like also like when do you play Ragnaros? Like whenever Ragnaros hits face, the brawl is already gone. Like a warrior will still lose to Devil Molten Giant.
Yeah.
Right. So you don't play Ragnaros. You wait for those Molten Giants sometimes. Like he has
So-
plenty of
Yeah.
other options.
Even
I
Dr.
feel like-
GG can not go in your favor.
I think like how this game has gone down so far can be attributed a lot to the fact that Trump opened up with double Acolyte, and now his hand is so huge. In most games that I see of this matchup, it's like the Control Warrior is left with like a Ragnaros in his hand and like no other cards, and he's forced to YOLO it. Then the Rag goes to face, double Molten Giants come down, and the Control Warrior loses the game. But we're seeing this matchup play a lot differently.
Yeah, so like you said, it's about the draw engine. The Warlock has the more consistent draw engine, but in this case, the Warrior hit his double Acolyte. He got the card draws off of them. He has all the options he need, and so he's probably a pretty big favorite. If he were like 1 card draw less this game, then he wouldn't have hit that Shield Slam on time. The Execute would be a turn later. Things would be a lot harder.
Yeah. I think a lot of people say that maybe Life Coach might be slightly weaker because he only plays Handlock. He's very predictable, but he has like done so well in leagues such as the Kingwin Pro League where he has been predictable. But I think this is one of those games where his predictability hurt him a lot because Trump was able to keep cards like Double Acolyte in his opening hand.
That's a good point.
I think Life Coach is very happy about the Molten Giant draw because he could like reduce the cost of that as well. It's like it's one of the it's like the main way to come back into this game. If there's a way to come back, it looks very bad.
Something else to consider though is that 2 Sun Furies have been used, 1 Defender of Argus has been used, and at least 1 Sludge Belcher has been used. So you would have to think that probably if he plays double BGH, he might not have the second Argus. So there's only like 1 taunt left in the deck possibly.
This is a very...
What's Trump doing about this Emperor? It's pretty awkward, right?
That sucks. There's no way to kill it.
Well,
Yellow rag.
I mean, there's options.
That's why-
We've got Nightmare. We
That's why I
have the
don't play
Nightmare.
rag.
Okay.
At some point you have to play it, right? And YOLO it.
Maybe not this point though.
YOLO Dr. Boom. Is that even YOLO?
I can
Oh,
take the
dream.
hit.
Just using the Dream. I think that's a good play.
That's good. That's good.
Like
Kinda
I think
setting
we
up
were like
people.
we were pigeonholing the Dream way too much into that it would like remove taunts. But I think like because there's no more taunts left pretty much, then it's not really that much of a factor anymore.
It's like the sickest tempo card in the game. It's like a 0 mana zap.
Handlock's
you
in a
can
really
use-
tough spot here, right? Because he's used the Shadow Flame. So like, how do you deal with a giant board like this?
Oh yeah, that's
Yeah.
also like a new thing that Life Coach only runs 2 AoEs nowadays. Like he's running 1 Hellfire, 1 Shadow Flame.
Yeah, and I don't think anyone runs double Shadow Flame these days. So it's actually really important that Life Coach was pretty much forced to Shadow Flame a Ysera, or he used the Shadow Flame just especially to kill the Ysera. So that Ysera, like, it just swung the game completely, and just a
man.
good like tech choice by Trump because he knows that Life Coach he runs 1 owl, he runs only he doesn't run Siphoned Souls at all. So like that Ysera alone is just carrying him throughout the whole way, even though it's been dead for so long.
So does
This
he
is-
have to heal bot here to stay safe? Because he really doesn't want to with these Molten Giants in hand. It doesn't feel like a winning play.
And that's like the situation where you lose as a handlock to Control Warrior. Like if you're behind, you're always dead to Grom, right? You always have to do a play just to come back on board, and whenever your opponent draws Grom, you're dead.
So the Lotheb helps defend against potential Nightmare or Ysera Awakens lethals
Wait, if you
here.
double Boombot face for 8 is lethal.
Yeah, it's gonna happen.
You just need you don't even need so
You don't
much
need that
damage.
much to face, right? With the Nightmare he can play.
I mean, you go for it. You can even Ragnaros, right?
Yeah,
Go for it.
I think we're probably going for it. This is probably
Oh,
a
man.
Ragnaros turn. So you run your Boombots into the BGH and slam Ragnaros. Maybe play
like it.
Armorsmith first, because why not?
It's always cool to see the 0 mana cards costing 4 mana after Lotep. Because they get -1 mana cost from the Emperor. Good.
Oh, he's going for it. Boombot RNG, esports.
Oh,
Not enough.
wait.
So maybe now you just play safe. You just like trade into the BGH and don't attack. That went well.
Like you saw, your opponent had such a weak turn the turn before.
Very
Wait, how many
disrespectful.
taunt givers are gone?
3 are gone. So there's only potentially 1 more Argus. And wow, double owl. Not something we typically see from Life Coach these days, but I guess he was just like a bit unlucky that he didn't draw it for the Ysera.
Might still be like a mistake that last attack. Because the only way how the handler can come back is like with the 3 Moltens.
Yeah, you never know. Some times somebody's going to show up with double Shadow Flame, right? Just to get you.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Never know.
And it does feel like one of those games where like if he had the Shadow Flame right now in his hand, it could just swing around.
Not just that, like, yeah, you see?
Whoa.
Because he can play the heal bot as well.
That tap
It's
into
just-
Argus was risky and it paid off. I mean, I think it was a good risk to take, and this is a huge moment in the game.
He doesn't even have so many cards left in his deck.
In a way, though, I think Trump feels alright about this Argus because if he runs double Argus in his deck as well, then he probably doesn't run Jiraxis, which is one of the ways he could theoretically come back.
And suddenly, it doesn't... Now it's like an even game, sort of. right? Because he has the answer for the first threat, the Alex Strauss or Ragnaros, whatever he decides to play. Just because of that little attack, he gave like Life Coach a chance to come back into the game.
Yeah, I think you have to like just use up your Nightmare here, use up that resource, and forget about that like 20 damage Grom kill or the 17 damage Grom.
Right, with Molten's out of the way, it's just sort of like a play for board kind of game. You're no longer as concerned about setting up burst. You've already seen the Moltens.
Yeah. Also, Trump, he can kind of like, I'm pretty sure he's like tallying down Life Coach's threats right now. And I believe both Mountains were definitely used, both Moltens were used. I'm not sure if the second Twilight Drake was used, but besides that, I think the only remaining threats are possibly a Ragnaros and possibly a second Twilight Drake. So after that, pretty much Trump has all the freedom in the world.
Yeah, but now it might be that Trump threw the game last turn. Like he has the BGH for that, and there's not much left. It depends on how many cards Life Coach has actually left. Like, what does Life Coach have left in terms of threats? There's 4 cards.
Just Sylvanas and Twilight Drake.
No, he played
and
Sylvanas.
If he'll okay, so then just possibly one Twilight Drake and maybe a Ragnaros.
Probably Ragnaros, right?
Oh yeah, he's afraid of. He's definitely afraid of Grom. But is there like a point? Wait, because you're dead to Grom no matter what.
Okay, so he's just throwing on the board. So Grom would be great. Brawl would be amazing.
Oh, and we see the double owl. Like we weren't even mentioning it. Life Coach is running 2 owls.
And you know what? This might be this is one of those games where Life Coach breaks his own rule. He silences the owl to go for the attack, or silences the watcher.
He will wait till it's lethal. He said only when it's lethal.
Okay, yeah.
No, when you have 2, you just do it right away. Like, the game right now is he wants to kill the warrior before Grommash happens, right?
Is that correct what he just did? Probably.
I think it makes sense.
But there's 1 heal bot left, right? He played 1 heal bot, so there's for sure. I mean, he dies faster now.
Yeah, I'm also wondering how much is Trump figuring fatigue into all of this, because both players, they're really down at a low amount of cards or a low number of cards. And there's like pretty much one of the last threats.
Oh man, Trump looks kind of crushed. I mean, he realizes that was like he had the game in his hands, right? He had all the value, everything. He just needed to wait patiently for Grom. Now it looks so bad.
It was an understandable, because like the rope was ticking, and the way the boombots went really changed the way he was thinking about the turn. Because he was looking at lethals, and then all of a sudden it's a clear with no lethal, and he just has to completely shift his mindset about how to play. So it's really difficult to do that with the rope burning.
Yeah,
This is
really
probably
good point.
this is probably the first time we will ever see Life Coach silencing his own watcher.
History is made today, guys.
It is.
This is such a tense game. Like, every top deck matters a lot right now. That's a 2-turn
like-
lethal.
Like this one.
Yeah, this is...
But wait, he has to life tap for heal bot. Like even if he doesn't top deck it.
Yeah,
What
he
the-
definitely has.
Man, if he has no taunts left, if heal bot is the
Wait,
last card
is-
in his deck,
Is Ragnaros lethal though? Oh, there it is.
that's but the chance was so likely he gets it, right? Yeah, Grommash
Yeah.
is still deaf, right? Yeah, of course.
You can't play around it though.
How many cards does Trump have left? He shouldn't have like too many either. Like
Five
Five.
cards left.
so 20%. What is the last card?
No, I think there's like
Ragnaros?
2 cards. Yeah, Ragnaros or maybe a Belcher. I think he has 1 card left, so I think it's one of those. It's either Ragnaros or a Belcher.
20%. He knows 20%. I'm dead.
Oh,
Oh my god.
Man.
Well, sometimes you get lucky.
Wow, life coach. Oh my god. Oh no. No. He's
That game was...
Like,
Look at the
how can
reactions on the players. It was so
Yeah.
back and forth the whole time.
that
That
was
was
so
incredible.
clutch, right?
Yeah,
But
all the
because-
players are going through like an emotional roller coaster throughout that entire game.
Yeah, I mean, for life coach, like he was behind the entire game, right? And then he managed to come back and only die to like a Grommash top deck, and Trump being like ahead the whole game, and then kind of, it's not a real misplay, just like the wrong, how do we say, like line of play, and then comes back to like a top deck and then he gets it. It's crazy.
Yeah, the key moment was that turn when the boombots didn't go face and instead allowed for a clear, and then he attacked for that extra 5 damage, allowing free Molten Giants a big swing turn for Life Coach. It's really a credit to Life Coach that game was as close as it was.
Yeah, definitely. I
Like, a
think
lot of things went Trump's way.
And then it must be so much more soul crushing, right? That he loses in the end.
Yeah,
Because
he's
he knows-
like, oh, I played
Nice.
well, I deserved it.
Yeah.
You don't get what you deserve. You get what you get.
yeah,
Esports.
often not. And you know what? Life Coach is down even more in the standings. So Zalay, I think you're talking about going for like the most wins. The like what's your record right now, Zalay?
I don't want to talk about that. Let's talk about my
Okay.
team's record, which is 2 wins and 1 loss. That's very solid. And so it looks like Nihilum maybe is going to lose this and be tied with us or even be behind in overall wins, right?
But as Mo
Yeah.
mentioned earlier, they were behind in every series so far, and still managed to pull out a win.
Yeah, they're
Not against Archon, right? They were
Ah.
ahead against Archon, but then they pulled it out. And then RDU couldn't get the last win. I think that's how it worked out. But they were like way behind against Liquid, and they pulled it out in the end. And I think that's because they had this experience of pulling it out in the end one time. Then I think like together as a team, they'll trust each other more, and they'll realize like, hey, we can do this no matter what.
I think probably just about every team has that level of like professionalism going for them. Like these are all top tier tournament players. Everybody here's had comeback stories. You have to make it this far in Hearthstone. You have to be able to lose some games and still stay tough and pull it out.
Yeah. One other thing to note is that RDU has always been the last player to get the win out. So again, we haven't
He
seen
always
RDU
managed.
actually play today. Yeah, he always he's like the clutch player of Nihilum. In the end, he will get that last win. But so far, we haven't seen him even come out yet. Even though he's
also like what is nobody mentioning, Thijs has probably like the best win ratio with Druid, right? In the Archon League, like everyone has usually
So-
like a lot of losses when he brings
So-
Druid, except Thijs.
so basically what you're saying is that Thijs is the only player that has a positive win rate with Druid.
Yeah,
What a god. He is known
Yeah.
for being like a really good Druid player, right?
but he is, yeah, he's very good Druid player. Like he's always brought Druid from the beginning of Hearthstone, and he was doing always really well with it. It's kind of nice to see.
So Thijs, he's mostly known, like in the beginning, he was mostly known for winning the I Heart You King of the Hill 10 times in a row. And a funny stat about that is that like he actually had a negative record with every other deck besides Druid. But with Druid, he had something like a 20-3 record.
That's absurd.
Yeah.
Man.
Carrying all the way.
Yeah, and he was like one of the forefathers of Wild Growth Druid. Like back in the day, before Thijs came along, like Wild Growth actually wasn't that great of a card because every other deck was Zoo pretty much, and like Wild Growth wasn't the best against Zoo. But then Thijs brought it out along the Wild Growth Druid, and he just like began dominating everyone.
Well, growth is
Especially the
probably always a
Undertaker
good card.
turn.
People just maybe didn't know it. Like I feel like I wasn't really playing much Hearthstone at the time. I was busy with Magic. I feel like I would have seen that card and said, "That one's good."
Yeah, I played Ramp like very early, and it was very strong.
Gara is also, we want to mention that Gara was like pretty much like the first player to win a tournament with Ramp Druid. Not like and not even just like normal Druid, but no combo Druid.
And it was like one of the few decks that could play around Buzzard Unleash because that was like so broken. You could just play like one big taunt or like 2 big taunts and just play with that. And yeah, Buzzard Unleash is not good against that.
So this is a big moment. What's the Warlock? Oh, it's Handlock. That's bad news.
It's like obviously the strategy was targeting the handlock of Trump, so you can't lose against it, right? Imagine like if Audio loses this match, that's not just a normal loss. It's like a loss against the deck they attacked all their decks against.
Yeah, exactly. And this is going to be mid-range hunter, which is interesting because every week I believe RDU has brought the hybrid hunter. So I'm a little curious as to like why he changed it up, especially for just this match alone. And because I think like the hybrid hunter versus mid-range hunter, they're like it's very similar against handlock.
Well, Hunter's Mark is a big pickup in this matchup. Also, I want to say the Hunter had an interesting turn 1. Like, there's a lot of merit to coin Juggler to put on maximum pressure. He had a solid follow-up with Haunted Creeper. Turn 1 Web Spinner gives away a little bit of information about what he's doing. He could maybe conceal that for a few turns. But there's merit to doing it this way as well, right? Like coin
Yeah.
gives you a lot of flexibility. Maybe you get a turn
And it plays
5
around
High
Dark Bomb. Because,
I've got
like,
the beast
in his turn 2, he would just Dark Bomb, but in turn 3, he's, like, less likely to Dark Bomb.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. And it also like somewhat plays around Mortal Coil, in the sense that your opponent probably doesn't want a Mortal Coil on turn 3 or on turn 2 rather.
Oh, that's also big.
That was a big yuggle.
And that's
Oh
also
my god.
The RNG is with him.
Yeah, I
That
mean
was
this matchup.
That was crazy.
This matchup is typically very favored against in the favor of mid-range hunter, and this is actually one of the most favored matchups in the entire game. The stats are 22-7 with a 76% win rate.
And look at this, just everything perfect for the hunter. Owl.
Oh my god.
Oh man, it can't get any
This is
better.
brutal.
Like, yeah, because he has like tempo Hyman with Hunter's Mark, it doesn't matter. There's like no way Hunter can come back into this one.
Yeah, sorry, Trump. This is not happening for you.
Yeah, the problem.
This is also big. Freezing trap.
Yeah. Wow. The problem with this matchup is that every turn the hunter, if they curve out correctly, they can develop such huge threats, and the handlock, like, they can't deal with all those threats most of the time. And also, it's the fact that the hunter has a lot of like burst damage from their hand, so they can easily burst around molten
No.
giants.
This is an
Your
interesting
Hunter's
turn.
Mark, that was a misplay. You Hunter's Mark first. You Hunter's Mark and then coin out the...
Do you think
Now,
it's
if you
just
Hunter's
save the
Mark-
Hunter's Mark?
No, you Hunter's Mark it and then coin out the high main.
Okay,
And then you
assuming
kill
you
it.
miss the juggle,
Yeah.
then what's the play? You trade the Hunted Creeper
the-
in and the Owl?
You don't need a Hunter's Mark. Like, he can't play a Giant. If he plays a Giant, he's dead. You have to Hunter's Mark the Sludge Belch. I don't know what he saves the Hunter's Mark for.
I wonder.
Yeah.
Like, now
Maybe
he could
he's-
do some Hellfire shenanigans, or like, now he could Owl Hellfire, and only like 2 1/1s would survive. You need to protect the Hyman. That's why you said, like, use everything. Like in turn 5, you play like Freezing Trap and use Bow and Hunter's Mark just to get like this strongest possible Hyman turn. And now this is like not the optimal Hyman turn because you let the Sludge Belcher live. There's ways to remove it. If you kill the Sludge Belcher, there's just no way to kill Hyman.
What do you think about trading into that juggler? Because the High Main's going to eat your Belcher anyways, and you can instead develop Owl silencing the High Main. Like, instead of Dark Bombing the juggler, you
Yeah.
just trade it into your Belcher because it's
Yeah,
going to die
yeah.
on board anyways to High Main, and then you can
Yeah.
Owl the High Main.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
that's probably a better play.
The problem is like there's a lot of things in the mid-range hunter deck that does like 2 to 3 damage, I guess. So he might be afraid of like this Eagle Horn bow, for example.
Okay.
And because of that, like the high main like might have the opportunity to go for face for 6.
And usually, like, if he had a Hunter's Mark, he would have used it last turn. Kappa. It's like
The
very
Eagle Horn
common.
bow, if he bows down on the front half of the Belcher, his High Main's still running into the slime though, right? He needs
Just-
like multiple things to get through.
Just look how different this turn would have been. Like, he would have pushed all the damage through with the Hymen and everything, and he could set up low tap, and you can't Molten Giant Shadow Flame and stuff. It doesn't matter. So
Yeah. I think
I hope not.
the hunter is just like still way ahead here.
yeah, this is crazy. Like, to win, a lot of things have to happen.
Whoa.
That's correct.
Could have
probably.
Argus been killed off the High Main.
Yeah, I was expecting an Argus there
Yeah.
because now it's like you can like the hunter will be able to get in 6 damage in.
Yeah, not just 11 even.
Yeah.
11's
but
a big
like
number.
yeah, if you Argus, you would remove
is that
6 damage
lethal?
from the board, right?
He can quick shot. Quick shot
Do we
hero
just,
power.
are we gonna push for damage? And not care about Moltens, or this is an interesting decision point in the game.
But then you have to use the bow and not the 11. I don't like it. You wait.
I think
for-
you don't put him all the way down. I think you.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
not good. Yeah, it's because
But
it's
it's-
mana inefficient and you don't have kill command in your hand as well, and you don't have. Yeah, he still has Hunter's Mark, so it's fine, I guess.
He's putting him to. Oh, he's not even putting him to 6. He's putting him to 7. Because he would like to put him to 5, where he can quick shot hero power through a taunt, right?
Yeah,
I guess he figures it's okay to risk Moltens because he has the Hunter's Mark in hand.
Exactly.
but usually
he-
10 life is the worst possible life to put him on.
Right, he probably could have just skipped an attack.
Oh my god.
Oh, big pickup. we've seen a lot of this today. Just these huge double molten giant turns with like you don't have to put the hand lock down to 10, but we do, and then
But
here
it's still
comes
not
double
enough,
moltens
probably.
for the punish.
He has Dark Bomb, Double Molten.
I wonder.
He has one Hunter's Mark, that's the problem. And he can break through the... Well, maybe it's... Wow, this might actually be enough. Because if he has to use the Lord Tap to kill the other giant, he's like out of steam. And he has Hellfire Healbot next turn.
Oh, double.
Wow! Oh my god, the top decks are real.
Look at that RD.
This is a silly day.
Yeah.
This is crazy. This is just... I don't know.
That's just
So-
lethal, right? I haven't counted. That looks like a lot.
This lineup is definitely very anti-Hadlock, as we can see. Double Hunter's
Double-
Mark. Gar,
Yeah.
I think you ran doubles Hunter's Mark last week, right?
Was it last week? No.
Yeah, Hunter?
No, I played Chucky's deck and it doesn't have Hunter's
Oh,
Mark.
okay.
I think Chucky has like the strongest Hunter deck right now. His version of a good Hunter.
Yeah. We
Shout
can
out
talk
to
about
Chucky.
that later on.
Chucky, you're the boss.
This
Yeah,
has been an
Chalky
insane
has-
series so far. I'm really enjoying the games.
Yeah, especially like this strategy that's like we haven't seen the strategy much in the Conquest format, or at least in the Archon League format, because typically like you can target a single deck in the Conquest format, but it's a little different here because number one, you're guaranteed, or your opponents are guaranteed to bring that deck almost. Like your opponents are much more predictable in the lineups they bring. But second of all, like you pretty much have to bring 6 counter decks, which is quite hard.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting that we haven't seen too many super like targeted lineups because of, like you said, you're kind of forced to bring a lot of the same things every week. But it's in Hearthstone, it's just so hard to consistently beat one deck. Like sometimes they just draw well and you don't. Even if you have the right tech cards, you're going to lose some games.
Yeah.
And,
Like
like
you,
even
you
in,
fig-
even in just
Yeah.
normal Conquest, it's such a high risk. What if he doesn't bring the decks? But like if you target a deck with 6 decks or 5 decks and he doesn't bring the deck, that's like insane.
Yeah, exactly. Like you also have to think like Druid. Even if you bring double BGH, it's not like near 100% win rate. I would give it like 60, 70 at like if we're really pushing it. So like it's actually like quite easy for Trump to actually sneak a win in. But just like judging by like the strategy that Nihilum brought, even though they're behind now, I think like they actually have a pretty decent chance.
I don't know, remember if you saw the Y Games anti-handlock deck from Thais
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
with the Giants, and it's still almost lost. Like a double Owl, double Earthshock, double BGH, double Hex, and the Clockwork Giants, like absolute anti-handlock. It still was lost.
Yeah, it was pretty much Tice. He had like something like a 10% chance of losing because he had like 2 crackles in his hand at the end, and he had to like make sure the crackles didn't do like 3 to 4 damage each. They had to go for 5 or 6. So that was pretty interesting. Like 100% handlock counter still like had a chance to lose against handlock.
Yeah.
It's just really tough to hard counter anything in Hearthstone.
Yeah.
The best
It is a
example
card
is
game.
Patron. Like even the best Patron counter decks lose like 50% of the times to Patron.
Yeah, I think I had a game in this league. No, maybe it wasn't, but I had a tournament game where like both of my death spites got oozed, and I just won anyways. Crazy.
Yeah. I've seen that happen quite a lot. Like you see Ooze and Harrison Jones in pretty much like almost every deck these days, and like the Patron Warriors like still sneak out games sometimes.
Yeah. So what are we expecting to see here out of this? I mean, it could be anything, right?
Warrior versus Warlock. So okay, so I think this is probably the best matchup that Trump could hope for. If this Warrior is going to be like a Patron Warrior, which we almost can expect it to be. But like again, like did Life Coach bring BGHs and like Shield Slams or like Brawls in his Patron Warrior deck just to counter the Warlock? That's a real
Life
question.
Coach has been playing a lot of Patron Warrior on stream lately. So
Oh,
it would be really funny if he just showed up with Control Warrior, just juked everybody like, oh yeah, that's stream practice? Nah.
Yeah.
But
I
40
don't
hours
believe-
into that just to trick you.
I don't think I've ever seen him. Okay, I think I've seen him play Control Warrior once in his first ever tournament, which was the EU versus China #1 tournament, and this was like 1.5 years ago. But besides that, like I've seen him play Mech Warrior, and I've seen him play lots of Patron Warrior, but never Control Warrior.
That's really interesting. You'd think Life Coach would love the Control Warrior style since he's so into handlock. Those are kind of a similar feel of deck. He really likes thinking things through, having lots of options, right?
Yeah, not only that, he's a big fan of the Control Paladin as well. So those like kind of fit in a similar like they're pretty similar as well, right?
For me, the most surprising thing is about Life Coach that everyone would like agree that Hunter is very strong, right? Most of the time, like it never gets like super weak. And Life Coach was one of the first Hunter players. Like his Sunshine Hunter was like super popular, right? He was like one of the best Hunter players in the world, and that he really doesn't play Hunter at all nowadays. This is like very interesting.
So this is going very well for Trump, the mulligan part of the game. He has double Mountain Giant, just huge threats. He's going to put Life Coach to the test. He has to find those executes fast.
Yeah, and if like again, like we said, this is probably like I would say this is like the deciding match of the entire, or at least the most important match of the entire series. Because if Trump is able to sneak a win here, like his handlock is free, and all these like BGHs in all the Nihilum's other decks, they're pretty much useless or mostly useless.
So like, what do you think about this matchup? Like, what are the percentages? Because everyone says like handlock is such a big counter.
Right, well, it's going to depend on the tech cards and all that, so I don't want to put percentages on it, but certainly handlock is a favorite. I would say they're like less than 70%, maybe 60-something. It depends a lot on tech cards on both sides. Like, theoretically, you could put like a Brawl in the Patron Warrior, and that's going to help you a lot. How many weapon destruction cards are in the handlock deck? I would guess typically 1, sometimes 0, rarely 2. There's a lot of factors that go into it. I thought the Patron Warrior's mulligan was pretty interesting. He kept the Frothing and the Emperor. I guess Emperor makes a lot of sense when you know you're queuing into handlock. It's not ladder where it might be Zoo. Frothing is a risky card to keep because if you don't have an execute to protect it, you can't really just run it out there. So you're just keeping a combo card in your opening hand? That's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So if there's execute, that's big.
Yeah, I think maybe a part of it is that like Frothing is basically your win condition in this matchup. So like if it's like in the bottom like 20 cards or like 5 cards of your deck, like you pretty much can't win this matchup at all. So
I disagree. Like you can draw your whole deck. I think you really want to have answers to their big threats in the early game and a lot of card draw to get through things. You want to be just developing and killing their threats and drawing cards. I don't think you want to keep anything like Warsong Commander. So to keep Frothing is sort of like keeping Warsong Commander, except that Frothing's a much better, just like you can actually play it on turn 3 because it's hard to deal 4 damage. Handlock's good at dealing 3 with Dark Bomb and Hellfire, but it's a lot harder to have Dark Bomb plus Coil. Whoa, Trump's excited about something. Right. Did you see that?
Yeah,
he was just doing the...
That is way too exciting.
Oh, I think he's saying like turn 2 rope. How is he roping? Like if I can read his mouth movements, like why is he roping on turn 2?
Has he never played Life Coach before? This is
I've never seen Trump so excited. Or like so emotional.
This is very standard Life Coach here.
But that's like a really good hand from Trump, right? He got 3 out of the 4 big threats.
Yeah, does Trump lead with Twilight Drake to like be a little bit like kind of lead with the weak one to see if it gets executed, and it also leads into like a tap giant turn, or does he figure I have double giant, just go hard?
Trump is out of here.
Yeah, Trump is not gonna lead. He's gonna leave. He's like, I'm gonna get a drink now. I can use the bathroom. I'll be here. I'll be back in like 2 minutes.
I really like Frothing here.
Turn.
For the Patron Warrior, I like Frothing because he has the execute. So if you show up with Drake or Giant or whatever, you can just kill it. And it's tough to deal with that Frothing. I think the reason you kept it is so you can play it in spots like this.
I see.
Oh, interesting. I think
that's a very interesting play.
I think most players, they definitely wouldn't do that. Like just from what I've seen on stream and what I've seen in tournaments. But I definitely want to see like if Life Coach considers that, and if he just goes for the armor pass.
I think holding it in hand is like. I don't know why you'd keep it off the mold if you're not going to play it there.
Oh, he kept it as well.
But there's a lot of room to play Patron in different ways and be effective. That was a big top deck. Now he has a lot of setup for lethals with Emperor, Warsong, Frothy, Unstable Ghoul, and Deathspite. Mm-hmm. So this turn he's probably got to deal with that Giant, probably like face tank 8, execute it, and then what? maybe play a Death Spite, setting up to coin Emperor. I don't know if he wants to coin Emperor though, because he's not actually in a huge rush to get out Emperor. You kind of want to play it on the last turn before you kill them. When the patron plays Emperor, it's a lot of times it's a tell that they're looking to kill you, because the later you play it, the more time you have to get a discount on something like Whirlwind.
Yeah. Zlay, you're very lively when you talk about these patron warrior matchups.
Oh yeah, there's a lot going on. There's a lot to think about. Patron's one of the most complicated decks, and you can make a lot of mistakes and still win. There are a lot of ways to play it. It's really interesting.
Yeah, that's why I enjoy watching your stream when I learn about patron plays.
Thanks.
All about your smooth and hairy patrons, right?
Oh yeah. Right to the face.
Life coach is giving the viewers enough time to place your bets on what's his play here.
I was not going to bet on that play ever. This is
That's
interesting.
really
Life Coach is
interesting.
just playing completely different from me, but he's also a good patron player, right? He also wins a lot.
Yeah, but
Exactly.
he's really analyzing every situation, like every complicated situation he had. Like in
Trump's
his games.
really playing those 8/8s. That's good. That Lothab's actually a really big pickup. It's probably going to win in the game, I would say. He has a ton of pressure, and it's gonna throw things off.
He's really not thinking so much about like life coach hit his face like twice in a row with his Warx, and he just like snap plays those giants.
Yeah,
Should
this is
be-
what Life Coach is going for with those last. That's why he went face. He wanted to set up this lethal, and this Lothab is Does it stop the lethal? Because actually, a lot of those are all minions. He doesn't need whirlwinds and enrages for this lethal.
Yeah, he needs like a defender of Argus definitely has to come down here.
Has it though?
So
Is this a spot where you can leave the Emperor up because the game's going to end, so the second Emperor discount doesn't matter?
that's a good point. But you're leaving one more minion on the board, and you're also you're leaving like the 5/5 on the board as well. So it's like potential for more damage to your face if you don't clear it. You also have to consider that.
Yeah, I like this. I like setting up lethal for next turn. I don't know about the Ancient Watcher. How does that help
Yeah,
you?
yeah, that doesn't do anything.
That's
He's
one
thinking-
more minion. The thing about clearing the Emperor is the Emperor is dealing 5 damage to a giant either way, right? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. That's
So you're just
true.
kind of missing 9 face
the-
damage if you trade into it.
Yeah,
The Watcher
so
really doesn't do it.
he's like hoping for an owl top deck, I guess, just to fit in that extra 4 damage.
Is that it?
Probably.
You know I can't. You just do it.
There's no way I'm counting this right now.
Yeah.
I don't have to. I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
It has to be it.
Yeah, it's lethal.
I think if you
Except-
swing with Death Spite first, it whirlwinds the unstable goal. So that's like 1 less damage this way, right?
Very impressive play by Life Coach, like from turn 1. That was
this
like
is-
exactly his plan.
This is like pretty like if you ever want to show someone a video of like why Life Coach ropes all the time, and like what he's considering, this is exactly it. Because like he roped like pretty much every single turn from turn 1 to turn 4, but on
There's-
turn 5 he just like instantly coined out the Emperor, which
There's
like
something
tells
really
me that,
important
like,
here. He just went down to 2 life, which means if instead of playing that Watcher, Trump just realized if he had Dark Bombed face instead of playing that Watcher, then
Yeah.
swinging the Death Spite into a 9 attack minion would have just been suicide, and this line of play would not have been possible. So playing that Watcher not only added more damage to the Frothing Berserker, which turned out to be irrelevant, but it missed a huge opportunity to Dark Bomb face and deny the Death Spite swing.
Yes. Wow. So that was actually like a really complicated game, especially since like we were saying that this is the most important game in the series, where like Trump's handlock, this was like the best chance for that handlock to get a win. So it's like it's all going to be on that handlock right now. Can he ever going to get a win against like the 2 BGHs and probably every single remaining deck from Nihilum?
That's like a really easy mistake to make. Like almost nobody thinks about that, but sometimes you just want to put that Patron Warrior low enough so that he can't swing his weapon for the lethal the next turn.
Actually,
You're gonna wanna
because you
look for
brought that
Dark
up,
Bomb face.
Life Coach is one of those players who really values the phase damage a lot with his giants when he plays handlock, just because of that situation. Also, especially against Hunter, when they have like a bow out, they usually need like to hit the giant to clear it, and if you hit them face, that's like already 16 damage if they have to hit it, right? Even if they have like a minion out, he always like values to hit face over clearing. And that was like really a nice situation right there, instead of using
Oh.
the Dark Bomb.
I like this benched graphic. That's pretty cool.
I know this is pretty new and pretty awesome. Like we know that Trump now he can't play, so now Nihilum will like they'll bring their worst deck, I feel, against
Yeah, but-
Warlock out, right?
We will see a druid for. Shouldn't be too quick on the druid pick. Is that a druid turn?
So
Warlock
I
is
think they're-
benched, so it's Hunter or Druid coming out. And what do you want to play while the Warlock is benched?
Yeah. So yeah, I think there's like two things to consider, and the first I think is the most important. What do you want to play now that the Warlock is benched? What's the best against Warlock? And the second thing to consider is what do you want to play against a potential Hunter or Druid? But again, I don't think that's as important because Nihilum's entire strategy is based off of killing that handlock over and over again.
Yeah, the thing is like the handlock would be the best to pick for Nihilum, just because it would be a mirror match, right? And the other two decks are tagged to beat handlock. It's probably Mech, Shaman, and Druid with double BGH.
Yeah.
But then
Well,
you would pick into Hunter or Druid.
We did see though that the Life Coach's handlock had double BGH, so I guess that deck is slightly tacked against Trump's handlock as well. And handlock is widely considered like one of the skill matchups, so I think Life Coach is like confident that as like the best handlock player, or as like what most people would consider like one of the best handlock players, I think he would consider himself having an advantage over Trump, especially with double BGH.
For both teams, it looks like it will be difficult to get a win on this handlock, because all three decks seem to be
Yep.
really strong against it.
Yeah.
It might come down to the handlock mirror. Whoever wins it will win the series.
Yeah, you say that handlock versus Druid is like, I think most people will consider that Druid favored, but in reality, I think it's like much more even. And I think that's a large part due to because some of like the swing turns are just like, they feel so bad. Like getting BGH on turn 4 feels so bad. Getting
But-
Keepered and
But if you know as the Druid player that it is handlock, it also gives you like a big advantage.
yeah, it's a good point as well.
So Shaman
when
versus
you-
Hunter, I feel like the Hunter's favored here. What do you guys think?
I
Yeah,
think
for
I would
sure.
agree with that. I think just like Hunter overall is generally considered a better deck. And I also feel like if there's like Hunter marks in this deck, for example, against a Fell Reaver, that could just like be a huge swing.
Ooh. Yeah.
I also think that the Hunter is like slightly more consistent in their draws because the Shaman, it has like, it curves up very high, first of all, and it also has like a lot of situational burn, like crackles, the lava bursts, like you don't want to draw them early on, or even like doom hammers.
Part of the reason Hunter's so consistent is its hero power is actually useful. So when your cards aren't that great, your hero power really does something. Whereas Shaman, when your cards aren't great that turn, you're like, I guess I get this totem thing.
Yeah, and we're seeing like, I think one of the most important cards in this matchup is the Glaive Zuka. And I think like it's a card that's like really good against other like aggro decks, but like not so great against control decks because of this exact situation where the Glaive Zuka can like 2 or 3 for 1 basically.
So Mech Warper or Zap-O-Matic?
Usually this is the funny thing is that Hunter has so many turn 2 plays.
Yeah.
The worst one is Glaive Zuka, and you always hope they don't have a Glaive Zuka. You always
Yeah,
hope that
like
the
Zap-O-Matic
Mets
gets
is-
really punished by Glaive Zuka, but you're in trouble either way if he has Glaive Zuka. So I'm thinking about other things more. If you play the Zap-O-Matic right now, it can get some hits in before something like Bow comes down to stop it.
Online.
He goes for the Mech Warper. That's going to work out well for him, right?
Like even the Flame Tongue Totem wouldn't be too terrible because on turn 2 it's difficult to kill it. And the next turn he could play
Sets
the
up.
Mech
Yeah.
Warper plus Zap-O-Matic.
Is there any merit to not going for Glaive Zuka here? Maybe he's so afraid of the Mech Warper that you actually quickshot it?
To shoot.
That's really hard to do. Wow.
Quickshot is fine. Now you can hit like with the 100 creeper into the 1/2. I think that was fine.
Yeah. I don't think it's a bad play. I'm just surprised. It's like an interesting play, right?
I would have done the same probably. I think it's fine.
Maybe it's Kibler considers this like such a strong matchup for him that he just like wants to go with the safer play overall.
It's like for the Mech Shaman to come back on board is nearly impossible. You don't run Lightning Storm. You usually don't even run Earth Shocks. Like in his version, he probably runs at least one Earth Shock. But even the 1/1s are like such a big threat.
You
There's,
could
like,
bow
nothing-
here for mana efficiency. What do you think about that?
I think if you glaive Zuka, you probably want to kill off the Cogmaster first, and then get the buff on one of the remaining spiders.
Yeah, I like the bow here actually.
Yeah, I like the bow as well for mana efficiency because I think that's
Yeah.
really important in Hunter first of all, but also because the glaive Zuka buff is actually pretty important later down in the road. That you can like use it, save it for later on, basically.
Or next turn. You could use the bow next turn and just buff a minion with the Glaivezuka, play a 2-drop, because it's very high,
Yep.
you will draw one. Or just hero power, and every hero power is important as well.
Noitron's a great card against Hunter, but will it be enough here?
Probably not in this situation, unfortunately.
Honestly, this game is looks already over.
Yeah.
I'd have to agree here. Like, there's just no way that the Shaman can get back board control. Shaman's like, it has like the Power Mace, which usually helps getting back board control and against some other classes, but against like the Hunter that just has a lot of minions that have 1 HP, it's probably not very good.
Shredder's a beautiful pickup for this turn too. It's funny, the Hunter's behind on life by 9, right? But the early game's just not about life totals. The early game's all about board control, and the Hunter has all of it, and that's what matters.
And Hunter can way easier transition into phase damage than like the other aggro decks, just because of the hero power. As soon as a Hunter has like board control, it's like instant switch and he just kills you in 2 turns.
Yeah.
But it's much more difficult for the other classes.
Alright, so what are we looking for here? Doomsayer? Explosive Sheep? Explosive
And this
Sheep's
is-
a nice one.
Oh, that's kind of... Oh, but yes, the Glaivezuka.
Alright, Leok might activate this egg at some point.
Yeah,
Oh,
not
man.
only... Yeah, exactly. Leok, Glaive Zuka.
That's
Oh,
actually
both
so
pretty
huge, that Glaivezuka. It's like a completely dead minion, usually, on board.
This, and then probably Animal Companion.
Yeah, sounds good. You don't
Yeah,
really
I
need
noted-
to...
Most of the
I-
Animal
you-
Companions survive the Power Mace, which is important here.
Yeah. Something interesting to note is that as Kibler is getting further and further ahead in this game, his camera is getting lighter while RDU is like growing more dark.
It is the Leok.
Yeah, so he gets the double buff.
It also gives like more hounds. Yeah, he's playing super safe. He's playing around like Flametongue Totem, everything.
Whoa.
Hex is an
That's an
interesting
interesting
card
one. Yeah, typically not you know what it is? It's the handlock tech. He's being like super anti-handlock.
Okay,
So he's even bringing Hex instead.
so there's some consistency within their lineup regarding tech choices. I like it. That's a high main. Only cost him 4 mana. It's a pretty good card. Ooh,
Oh.
this owl. Why?
It's so clutch.
Kibler's reactions are so great too. He's like, yeah, I top decked that. That's pretty good. And not only that, he'll be able to pop the egg, kill off the pilot shredder, and there's just no hope here.
This is brutal.
It's also funny because the Hunter is actually losing in terms of life total.
Yeah, still.
But like these
But
kind of
he's way
matchups,
ahead.
they're all about board control.
You might actually play the Shaman I played last week. Just from the looks of it.
Oh yeah, I've been meaning to ask about that. It was such a weird shaman list because it was like kind of mech shaman, but it had so many low drops, and it also had like feral spirits, lightning
It's-
bolt, for example.
Yeah, it's much faster than the... It's just a more consistent deck. It's basically the best Shaman list right now. I don't even know who came up with it. It's like some NA guy.
So if you're the
The
hunter
curve
here, are you
ends at
thinking about
2-5.
Lightning Storm as like the only way you lose this game? And do you keep
I
clearing these totems at this life total?
I don't think you...
Plays around Flame Tongue.
I mean, like, he went with this line of play the whole time, so you kind of have to stay consistent. It's kind of weird that he kills 2 totems and now he starts ignoring them, right?
Yeah, I
Well-
also think it's because the frog is like kind of blocking any possible totem damage.
Honestly, the main reason why I would kill totems is just because it reduces the chance of them rolling a taunt totem. Taunt totem is like the only annoying one.
I hear the phrase "stay consistent" a lot, but I don't always agree with it because I mean things change over the course of a game. Just because initially it was right to do things one way doesn't mean there doesn't come a point where it switches over and you go for face. I think that's a really good point Monk made about the taunt eating up a potential flame tongue hit. So maybe the totem's just irrelevant.
Oh, this feels really bad when you have to lava burst a 3-1.
There's like no way. Like he gave up like his own last win condition, right? Some sort of crackle into lava burst into something else.
That's
Now he's
it.
yeah, it's just all.
Yeah.
Kibla undefeated.
Wow.
Yeah, so 8-0 score, and like
Easy.
by far the best record in Archon Team League so far. Pretty sure we'll get a pretty cool article for him saying how he went AO and how he's like pretty much the best player in the world right now. I would say.
Easily.
Easily.
Yeah, but you know, it's a lot of it is about like just bringing the same decks over and over again. He actually brought Druid one time, but he brought Mech Shaman and Hunter pretty much every single time. He's obviously like he's played very well with those decks, especially as we saw in the first game against the Handlock, where he could have just like lost the game if he played Fellreaver. So all credits to him for being in the lead in terms of like having the title of Master of Duels.
How much money do you get for that Master of Duels?
5K.
Is it 5K?
5K, yeah. But you know, it's not only that you have to have the best record, but you also have to make the playoffs.
Ooh.
So I think Value Town is doing like pretty well now. They're 2-1 and they're in a lead for the next series or for the current series.
That has to be like the most frustrating thing that could happen in Archon League. You get the Master of Duels, but your team doesn't qualify for the playoffs, so you don't get the 5K.
Yeah, that's brutal.
Feels bad.
I think for a Kibler, maybe the title is even more valuable than the money itself because he's already like he's got a name and a reputation in Magic the Gathering already. So it's really nice to like pretty much have like
do
a
you get the
title for every
title?
single game.
But if your team
Of
doesn't
course.
qualify, someone else gets the. Like,
Oh, okay.
No, you don't get it if you don't get it, right?
Yeah, you don't get it if you don't
Yeah.
get it. All right, stay up with the times.
Just wouldn't make sense.
wait,
All right, so
then nobody would get the 5K, right?
No, you give it to
No,
whoever actually whoever's team actually qualifies that has the highest record should get the title and the money, right?
exactly.
Should be that way.
We'll see
And
what
it
happens.
is that way. It is that way. I'm pretty sure it's that way. We can get a clarification later, but let's move on to the next potential series. Because Kibler won the last match, Trump is no longer benched. So again, we're going to see kind of a mind game. Do they bring Dog or do they bring Trump? And just like looking at these lineups, I have to say, I think the two remaining decks for Value Town are their weakest decks. You
Yeah,
normally
this is-
wouldn't think of as like Handlock being a weak deck, but Nihilum, they're like countering that deck, and also like Druid is just like one of the weaker decks. So
Yeah,
I think
this
it's
is-
going to be an uphill battle.
This is still anybody's game, right? That both, yeah, it's not just an uphill battle. Like both players have pretty much the same decks. Just that Nihilum has one more deck.
When you're Value Town here and you're deciding what to queue up, do you flip a coin just to make yourself as unpredictable as possible?
I think I personally, if I were in charge of anything, I would probably flip a coin. There's like not really too much like suggest to me like an alternative plan, for example.
Well, you could flip a coin to decide whether or not to flip a coin, and then the other half the time you try and decide based on other factors. That would be fun to do.
Can you really go for a strategy at this point? It's like when both of your decks are unfavored against basically everything. Like the Druid Mirror match would be the best possible pairing for Value Town right now, I guess.
Yeah, you would
Because
think
it's-
that the Druid the Druid Mirror would actually favor Dog because he's probably not running 2 BGHs in his deck.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's like, oh man, what kind of edge does it
51,
give you?
49. Yeah,
Yes, I
exactly.
feel like that.
I think Dog wants to run his Druid into Arteu's Shaman, maybe?
Really, I actually, in terms of
'Cause-
stats, that's actually the most one-sided matchup in the game. Mech Shaman is 14-2 against Druid in
Okay.
tournament play.
Yeah, no, I guess it wouldn't make sense. Let's see. This is really tough.
It's really
Yeah, I
tough.
would flip a coin. I like the coin flip. I mean, you could also go to a website and have it pick a random number. That's another way to do it. Lots
Yeah,
of ways to
you
decide
think-
which deck to go with.
Okay, so you're going with like the pseudo random thing in terms of a website instead of like an actual real life random scenario.
No. The website's actually random. It says so. They would never lie to you on the internet.
Okay, fair enough. The other thing is like to consider if you actually flip a coin, like Trump, Kibler, and Dog, they're not in the same place. So like, I think the website might even be more reliable. Maybe like if Trump flips the coin, he could just be like, like reverse the results, right?
You don't even have to flip a coin. It's basically you expect Shaman. It's very likely they will go for the Shaman because it's favored against both decks. And then you, like, with which deck you're more favorable or like more comfortable to go against the Mech Shaman with Druid or Handlock. It's tough, right? It's so close. What would you rather play against Shaman, Mech Shaman, Druid or Handlock?
You know what? I actually think there might be some strategy because again, it's not only the match winner that matters, but also whoever gets the best game differential. So it might make some sense to just send out the deck that you think has a better chance of winning against the rest of Nihilum's lineup. Does that make sense? Gara seems very confused.
No, it makes sense.
Okay.
So the Handlock is like with your explanation, like the better deck, I guess, because the Druid has like a better chance in the end.
Do you think Handlock has a better chance against this Mech Shaman than a Druid does? Because like Druid has, Innervate and Wild Growth. Those cards are good at winning bad matchups.
It's like if you get a win with the Handlock, it's probably more important than with the Druid because of the remaining matchups.
Well, I think with this hand, I think the Handlock has a better chance, pretty much.
Sure.
Because like even if you get a Wild Growth here,
Druid will never beat that hand ever.
Exactly, exactly. Whereas like Mech Shaman, or rather Handlock at least has a chance with like a Hellfire on turn 4, for example.
In this situation, when I see a Dark Bomb, I usually go for the Zap-O-Matic, just saying, because it's very unlikely they have... Because you can play the Neutron next turn, if they, as you can see, play as Sunfury Protector.
Oh my god.
This is a lot of things.
Wow.
How much does he want to commit into
Hellfire? Oh, you go for it, man. You can't play around that stuff. You play Mech Shaman. You gotta do it. Get a man out.
How to do it? I mean, just say "we" and see what happens.
Go for Nihao.
Yeah, Nihao.
Nihao.
That's of course I'm sure Gara has a lot of experience with that. It's like the Chinese version of hello.
Nihao.
Good accent, Gara. I'm proud of you.
We just came back from Valencia, and then it was like hola. It's good stuff.
Again, a lot of aggro decks in Valencia because of Green Sheep and Blackout bring like almost full aggro lineups.
Yeah, but you have to play it. I think
one.
Because if there's a Hellfire, you have to play the Shredder. You will never get the Zap-O-Matic out. And then there's the Sludge Belcher potential and stuff.
Well, he doesn't have that many cards in hand.
You know, one criticism I've heard about players in the Archon Team League is that they play maybe too safely. For example, Trump, when he lost 0-5 with his Paladin deck, a lot of players and a lot of viewers were maybe criticizing him for exactly that. He was just like not taking risks. And I think maybe like in this Team League format where like you're like playing not just for yourself, but also for the team, maybe you are less likely to take those risks. Maybe you're more likely to go for those safer plays.
Wow, that's very interesting that he decided to kill the Mech Warper over the Zap-O-Matic.
Well, he's at 28 life and he's got Molten Giants in his deck, so maybe he can take 6 here.
But here's like if his board gets somehow dealt with, there's no way he can kill the, at least right now. Like here's the Sludge Belcher. It's for sure an interesting play, but as we can see, it was the better play because he had the Zap-O-Matic plus Shredder, and he would have definitely went for both because he didn't see the Hellfire that last turn.
Yeah, this is actually like
looks very good
interesting.
Looks very good for Trump.
Yeah, he's just playing it slow and steady, which is exactly what he needed to do.
Yeah,
we saw this last time. We saw this last time, and we figured that it might be an anti-handlock measure.
And still no. Like Shaman is one of those classes that can really go for the tempo hacks. It's completely fine to hacks as Sludge Belcher as a Shaman. But you got the spell power, doesn't really matter.
You know, what actually could end up happening is that because he went for the Earthshock there instead of the Hex, then maybe later on, like when RDU, he might have lethal, but he just like he has to spend 3 mana on the Hex, and he still has to kill that frog instead of just Earth Shocking, getting rid of a taunt and going for face.
So this is an interesting spot. You really want to play the Fire Ellie on curve, but
Yeah.
you don't like what it's targeting, do you?
Face.
Face.
But
I mean,
then
are you gonna just put him down to like
you lose to Shadow Flame.
10 damage? You're gonna put him down to 11 and just believe he doesn't have Moltens, or? I mean, I guess you have a Hex for 1 Molten, so
It's,
Yeah.
The thing is, you play Mech Shaman. You have
just
to
go
take
for it.
risks. You have to
absolutely.
take risks.
This is a good play. Even if Molten shows up, you Hex it and bump it with your Annoyatron.
You basically lose if your opponent has something, and Trump has nothing right now. Like if he has like Molten plus Sunfury Protector, then you could deal with the. You have to hex like the Sylvanas most likely.
And that was
Then you
actually a
still-
really weak turn for Trump. That was
Yep.
Pretty was happy to see that for sure.
But you know what? Still, like Trump still could come back to this with a Shadow Flame in the next 2 draws, and he will have 2 draws.
The hex is so huge as well.
So I guess now we Hex the Sylvanas because we're not fearing Molten Giant anymore.
You can hex and even. I mean, he knows he doesn't have a Shadow Flame at this point. He would have 100% Shadow Flame last turn, so you can
Yeah.
just like develop the Yeti and hex the Sylvanas, and he knows that he has no Moltens probably.
Yep.
So
Yeah. It's
crazy.
Like hexing the Sylvanas also plays around like a top deck Shadow Flame as well,
yeah.
because he wouldn't be able to clear the Fire Elemental otherwise.
Any merit to like Cogmaster Totem instead of Yeti? Not really.
No.
You
This is
definitely want
much
that extra
stronger.
5 toughness.
Yeah, because of Shadow Flame. That's it.
That's a bummer.
Zapomatic too strong.
Yeah, that Zapomatic did a
of
lot of damage.
Yeah, and I think it was a lot about like Trump was really afraid of the Mech Warper instead of respecting the Zapomatic, which got in at least 12 damage, I believe. But and like if he actually like if he kept the Mech Warper alive, it actually wouldn't have changed any of RDU's plays.
I think they both played right, like perfect. It's just
It's a good game.
yeah.
you draw double Mech Warper, double Zapomatic. What can a poor handlock do?
Yeah. Yeah, I was actually fairly surprised that the game was as close as it was, because like we had said, if Trump or if Value Town queued Druid into that, it would be like a 0% win rate, right?
Yeah, that was just a god draw against Druid and just in general a god draw from the Mech Shaman.
I mean, if
So
he had a
4-4.
Shadow Flame, yeah, or Molten Giants, he maybe had a chance to come back, but with this hand, there was like just no way. And
This
Druid,
matchup's just- this matchup's
and Druid
nailed by
couldn't
a
have, like even theoretically, Druid couldn't even draw anything. Maybe like a turn 3 Dr. Boom or something. Who knows?
Yeah. And you know what? We're down to the last 2 decks, and it's going to be pretty much a complete mirror matchup.
Yeah, this was very expected so far with the like the hunter getting a win, the shaman getting a win. This is now getting like very interesting.
Yeah. And I think the most interesting part is I think both these, the 2 sets of decks are pretty much exactly the same, except Value Town only has 2 BGHs, 1 in each of their decks, and Nihilum has 4 BGHs across 2 decks. So it might not be like that big of a difference as we were making it out to be.
And even double owl
Yeah, double owl as
life
well.
coach, which is like an exception. So they're really prepared for their handlock mirror and just to counter it in general.
So Nihilum's got a big advantage because of the way they prepared for this spot. They wanted to bully Trump's handlock and maybe Kibler's Mech Shaman, those Fel Reavers, and it's playing out according to plan.
Yeah, really, like everything went according to plan so far.
Yeah. I would have to think it's not only like I don't think the advantage is honestly that big for Nihilum at this point. It's more of like the psychological advantage in the sense that like I think Value Town knows at this point that they're being targeted and that their opponent's strategy is working, right?
I feel like the double Big Game Hunter is a very big real advantage against handlock. Like that's like the biggest swing card in the game, right? Big Game Hunter, 3 mana, destroy your crucial minion and develop a medium-sized body, medium to small.
Fair
yeah,
enough.
but it's still Hearthstone. Might be that like you play 1 BGH, but you draw your BGH, and your opponent doesn't plays double BGH and doesn't draw a BGH.
Would you say Nihilum's more or less than like 60-40 to win?
Yeah, On paper, it is.
I think it's around 60-40. That's how I would value the matchups, because I think the Druid is probably like in the Druid mirror. I think Dog has a slight advantage, but in every other matchup, how they queue up, I think Nihilum does have the advantage. And the other thing to consider is because Life Coach is bringing 2 BGHs in his handlock, does that make his matchup against Dog worse? Right?
Yeah, like when you look at it that way, it might actually be even then, right? Because Town's Druid is like slightly stronger because of the anti-handlock tax.
Yeah. I think Dog will also be like considering when he's playing, like if he has a chance to perhaps innervate out a Dr. Boom on turn 4, for example, like he might consider like going for the Ancient of Lore instead, just because he knows he scouted it out that both these decks have double VGH. And we're going to see a Druid versus Warlock here between Tice and Trump. Now, you mentioned it also, like, I think Druid definitely, like, in stats-wise, I think the Warlock is slightly favored, but because both players, like, are aware that it's Handlock and not Zoo, Tice can just mulligan for those BGHs. He can mulligan for those Keepers of the Grove. And not just that, I feel like there are some cards that you can add to Druid besides the swing cards that can help the matchup a lot. And one of those cards that I've been hearing a lot about from pros is Azure Drake, because it's one of those cards that help you cycle your deck more into the combos, into Emperor, and into the swing cards.
So mulligan time, we see a Keeper of the Grove. That's pretty good against Warlock. And the rest of this, you probably just throw back, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly as predicted.
So you're saying stats-wise, the Handlock is a favorite against Druid?
Yeah, it doesn't seem that way because I think, well, as I was alluding to before, like the BGHs feel really bad and the Keepers feel really bad. But I think in the long game, the Handlock is a favorite. And stats-wise, it's 53% in favor of Handlock.
But in this case, the Druid knows he's playing against Handlock, so he's always going to keep that big game hunter, not fearing Zoo. And he has the double big game hunter. So in this particular game, the Druid has to be a favorite, right?
This can really be one of those situations. Like he plays double BGH, and he has the both mountains, but he doesn't draw it.
Yeah, I guess looking at the hands, this looks very scary for the Druid.
Yeah, this just feels so bad.
That's why Handlock is such a strong deck, right? Because you play the threats, and your opponent has to have the answer. And it's like with Handlock, it's always more likely to have the threat than your opponent the answer.
Do you shade or
It's
Wild
like-
Growth? Probably
Yeah, that's a
shade.
good question.
You have to coin, so you just shade.
What to do?
Another thing to consider is I think Trump will actually go for the Twilight Drake first, just to like kind of dodge the BGH, and also because the Keeper actually like isn't 100% counter to the Twilight Drake, because because Tice can't fit the hero power in.
Right, that's an excellent
Never mind.
point.
I think because of the Wild Growth play, that might change again, because
Right.
Tice will
Because
have
of
access to
the-
6 mana next turn.
Now you can Keeper coin hero power to clear it
Yep.
fully. Or is it better to cycle the Wrath than to hero power?
Safeguard.
The Wrath's pretty good with Azure Drake.
Yeah, that's a good point. Can clear off some of the annoying slimes, perhaps. Yeah, I like this slightly better. And we're gonna see Trump. He's gonna be able to go into double Mountain Giant. I'm sure, like he's very apprehensive and nervous about this play though, because he knows his opponent does have those double BGHs.
Man, if he'd played that Giant last turn, this would be a very different game. Druid would be under a lot more pressure.
Yeah, I don't think that's a play like you generally make though. Like I think all Handlock players are so experienced that they instantly know which of the big threats to play on turn 4. And I think in that scenario, I think
I like the Giant there.
yeah.
It's got a higher upside when it works. They're both equally likely to not work, but with the coin and the Wild Growth, the Keeper kind of lines up just fine with the Drake that turn, so you might as well go for the higher upside. I guess it's sort of like the higher risk play to play the Giant first, which maybe he feels like he's got a good hand, he doesn't want to take risks.
The other thing to consider is because he played the Actually, it doesn't really matter. But I think the other thing to consider is the 4-2 is a stronger body than a 2-4 that would result from the BGH. So he might be afraid of that as well.
He did have Dark Bomb to deal with the BGH on the following turn, right?
But if he Dark Bomb the following turn, he wouldn't be able to play a threat on the same turn.
Wow, this is a crushing turn. Mountain
that's
Giant,
a
clear
huge
your
turn.
Magic Drake, hit you in the face for 8. Can he come back from this, the Druid?
Probably not.
What would need to happen?
But this, I really wanna like touch on the turn where he decided to hero power over Wrath, because you all agree that it's like a better play, and in general I would also agree. But he doesn't have the BGH in his hand right now, so like the turn where he could cycle the Wrath, isn't it like
Yeah.
better to dig deeper into the deck to try to find the BGH?
I
Because-
think, I think given the position now, it is. But he couldn't have known that Trump would have
Yeah.
double Mountain Giant
Yeah,
in
yeah.
his hand.
But he can't
Well,
answer.
even one.
Yeah, even one. He can't answer it, so that's why I'm really curious. But Tice is like the experienced Druid player, so it's probably like correct to high play it. But I mean, that's really frustrating, right? To not have the BGH and he has double mountain. But this is what I was like talking about earlier. It can happen.
Yeah, this is just the God draw, and these things just happen.
And he has everything, like the lore tap to seal the game and stuff.
Yeah.
Because after the lore tap, there's not much Druid can do anymore.
Yeah,
Three
Maybe
Tyson
MC
is still
Tech off the
completely
top.
dead.
I was about to
Yeah.
say that.
Yeah, MC Tech is like surprisingly like not too terrible against handlock because they very often they have like all these like they have more than four or more minions on the board. And you know what? Handlock is one of those decks that plays Dr. Boom as well.
Do you like the Argus over the MC Lotep Sun Fury?
I like
It was-
the Lothep Sun Fury. I think I don't know. You might want to play a bit around Black Knight even in this scenario.
When's
Just
the
feels so
last
much
time you saw
stronger.
Black Knight?
Shield
I mean, the thing is like these are anti-druid decks or anti-handlock decks, so Black Knight kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
And I believe like the last time I saw Black Knight was actually used by Purple Drank, I think, your teammate.
There you go.
Yeah.
Oh.
But can he avoid to die? He has
Probably
taunt
not.
plus BGH. And he has to use everything to kill the second guy.
Exactly.
The second giant.
What if he gets the Bluegill Warrior? That makes it a lot cleaner to kill off a giant.
Or a Flame Tongue Totem, Direwolf, perhaps.
Looks like Trump is 1 damage off lethal if he goes for that play.
If he got Flame Tongue Totem there, he was really punished by his positioning with the Shredder, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Where shall I strike?
I really
so
like
good. Ow.
start to pay more attention about that myself. Just
You know-
for plays.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? Like, if Tice had gone for the play that you mentioned, going for the Wrath instead of the Hero Power,
You tap
he would have
for
gotten that
all.
BGH. Or rather, sorry. Yeah, Tice. He would have gotten the BGH 1 turn earlier, pretty much.
Is it correct to live tab? Hellfire is lethal. Owl is lethal.
I mean, just everything is lethal, right?
Yeah, right. So
Probably
You-
tap.
otherwise, you
If you-
can Argus.
If you don't
and-
get anything, you're still like have a really good turn on like for 6 mana. Like you have
Yeah.
your choice. of
You go
stuff.
watch your Argus. Your Lotheb eats his bear. Your Sun Fury trades with his BGH.
Yeah.
You have a huge Watcher taunted up.
And then you just have inevitability on your side, pretty much. Like you're gonna draw into one of those spells eventually.
Amas would just slam down that Ragnaros and go face.
Amaz would win there.
Missed
Lethal. Yeah, Twitch chat's definitely saying that. Wow, he does face.
That's greedy, right? A little bit.
I was gonna trade, but I mean, whatever. It's gonna work, right?
I think like
This is a
Trump
scary
like
hand.
maybe realized that he couldn't die to Force of Nature Savage War combo. So he went for that play. But is that actually correct?
7,
Yeah, he wouldn't die.
6.
It would be
You have to
it's only
trade your
15
minions in.
damage. Yeah, exactly. He has 2 more health than it needs. The combo would only do 15 damage to face. But from Tice's position, like from his perspective, it looks like he can stabilize for this turn, as long as Trump has absolutely nothing in his hand.
Which will not last long. Having 2 life doesn't usually work out against the deck with Hellfire and Dark Bomb and such.
Yeah. Especially because like decks these days, they run double Hellfire, double Dark Bomb. So 4 cards of the remaining, let's say, 20 cards in Trump's deck will just kill him. Getting some Savage War value though.
Good play.
And
by Tice.
yeah, you know what? If Trump absolutely has nothing in his hand, then there's a possibility that Tice could win.
Oh, turned up 1 Boombot lethal easy.
Easy. Rag is lethal again. I don't think that's the kind of lethal you want to take.
Yeah.
This is a
pretty
good
cool,
play.
though.
Yeah, he saw 1 BGH. He couldn't deal with the first 2 giants.
Have 2 more.
And at this point, you can see Tice like nodding his head, like he accepts his fate here. Like it was just kind of inevitable.
Lethal. Good play. Never misses lethal.
Exactly. And Trump, like you can see, like he
That was a huge win for value.
yeah, that was so huge.
Yeah.
Like especially because like I think Trump was like kind of like he, in the games that he lost, pretty much. First of all, in the game with against Life Coach, Control Warrior versus Handlock, he made kind of a misplay, or you could argue it was a misplay, where he went for face and he activated the Molten Giants, and I think he was kind of blaming himself for that. And also in that game against Life Coach, Handlock versus Patron Warrior, like he was kind of like in some ways like making fun of like how Life Coach was roping, but he played his turn so quickly that maybe he didn't consider every possibility, and he kind of lost a game in which I think he thought that he was like 95% chance to win.
Yeah, Patron's an explosive deck. It can blow you up. And Life Coach was kind of sending all the signals by going face and then playing Emperor that he was setting up lethal. And Trump maybe just missed a very difficult opportunity to spot by dark bombing face to prevent the weapon swing.
Yeah, so once again, Nihilum is kind of down in the ropes, but the one difference here is that RDU has actually like played all of his decks, so he's not going to be the anchor here this time.
It's still anybody's game because
No.
there's 2 druids involved.
I'll go
Everything
with
can
an
happen.
Innervate. Let's go.
Yeah.
Dog's a
It's
very
actually
good druid player.
This actually seems like a pretty common scenario, actually, where like the 2 druids are the last decks remaining, right? We saw it in Archon versus Tempo Storm, and also in a few other ones in Liquid versus Cloud9, for example.
This should be a good game. Tice versus Dog, both known for excellent druid play.
Yeah, it's pretty much Tice, Dog, and like Strifecrow who are known for like being the druid players.
Actually, Doc was known for being ramp most of the time. He made like a lot of ramp versions popular, but that kind of died off.
Yeah.
That's a
I
wild
think he was
growth.
That's good.
back in the day. He was mostly known for like 1 combo, I believe, instead of like the double combo that pretty much everyone uses these days.
Oh, looks like Doc didn't get it because he was shaking his head.
I liked Wild Growth better. I liked the single combo versions more in the past than I do now. I think with
Oh.
Emperor, double combo becomes a lot stronger.
Oh man, that hand from Doc is frustrating.
Oh, I was
Dog
pointing
must be
Wild
like-
Growth for the tempo BGH.
It's even more interesting.
I think it's acceptable because
Are we gonna
he
see
has
double?
2 BGHs, I guess.
Are we gonna see double tempo BGA?
Yeah.
on both
I think
sides?
if you cut the BG, or if you add a second BGH, I guess you're like cutting a shade in your deck. So he's like kind of it seems like he's making this look like a shade, I guess.
Now,
Or
is there
acts
any
as a
way you
shade.
like don't play something this turn, intending to keeper that 4/2 next turn?
You might actually even Savage Roar. I mean, here's only 1 BGH, right?
I like saving the Savage Roar because you have that Emperor. You could do some really explosive stuff
Yeah,
if you find a
yeah,
Force
yeah.
of Nature.
But here's also the keeper for that BGH, and he has to play the keeper probably next turn.
Well, you could play the Big Game Hunter and just
Uh,
hope he goes face with his Big Game Hunter, and then you get the keeper punished. Do you think there's any chance
Yeah.
it plays out that way?
Looks
not.
like he's
Yeah.
just gonna your power.
It's funny. There's so many like really important decisions this early in the game.
He
and
can
it's not
actually
clear which way to
consider.
go.
He played
He
it
can
too fast, right? Because he's thinking
Yeah.
now.
Well, he's considering whether he wants to hit the BGH to set up a swipe for next turn.
But
Because
this-
I think that's very valid because Tice coined out the wild growth, so it might be more likely that Tice can curve out in the next turn.
It's probably the first time I see Dog Rope.
Yeah.
He's known for being... Whoa. That was a swipe setup? Because
Yeah, swipe
like
setup.
you wouldn't wipe growth for a tempo BGH if you don't have like a follow-up play, right?
Exactly.
So that was like really heads up play by Dog.
Yeah, Dog is known for like I think in his first few tournaments, like when he was just getting on the scene, he played way too fast and made very obvious mistakes.
He's really known to be like one of the fastest players. Like but he thinks also very fast. It's not like that he just plays fast. But
I've heard him talk about that before. He says part of the reason he plays fast is because on his opponent's turn he's thinking about, okay, if they do this, I'm going to do that, and so he's sort of already thought about it, right?
Yep.
Yeah, but also in the very beginning of Hearthstone, like he told me that he played too fast sometimes because he was just used to playing fast on stream and like he wasn't used to tournament play. But I think Dog, he's probably played like more tournament games in the past few months than like almost everyone in the scene, save like 5 people perhaps.
See, I'm sort of the opposite. I'm more like Life Coach. I grew up playing chess, and I'm used to just like 4-hour games, let's do it. I just sit there and think for half an hour on one move, so the rope's kind of a bummer for me.
Yeah, we've seen that quite often in the past few weeks, haven't we? Zoe?
I mean, Patron, you're gonna rope no matter how fast you like to play. There are turns where it's literally impossible to do the things. But back to the game.
Oh.
Good Emperor turn. What do you think?
There's not really much anything else, but even if you Emperor, I think you're just dead. I
Yeah,
kind of
he's-
forget what's in Tice's hand, but
he has
if
Savage
your
Roar.
opponent, if your opponent like charges a Druid of the Claw into your face and you're at 14 health, like you're probably dead.
Yeah.
And he's just respecting that. He's hoping like with this line of play that he can like chain these taunts up. And very often, like as we mentioned, Black Knight isn't a card these days that anyone runs. So like it's very likely that this Ancient of War will tank the full 10 damage.
I just want to point out that Dr. Boom is green.
Ooh.
Okay.
But he doesn't go for it. Today's been a day with a lot of like people really think things through and make some not obvious plays that are pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm really enjoying this match.
So I think with this play, maybe he's selling that he's going. He has the Force of Nature Savage Roar combo, at least part of it in his hand.
Taunting up was
Sta-
huge there.
That would be so insane if Dog comes back from this, right? Because this is like one of those matchups that are really known for. If you're like behind in tempo in a Druid Mirror, you will just lose like
Yeah.
99% of the time.
Pretty much the only way you can come back into the game is your opponent like misses a drop. But we've seen both players; they've been like pretty spot on with drops past turn 4.
If he goes for the clear, he doesn't develop something.
I like this boom.
Yeah, you have to.
You get that for the boom. And also, like, I don't think this is a game where Dog can come back because of the Ancient of Lore in Tice's hand. Like, if he didn't have that Ancient of Lore, it was a possibility that like Dog could draw the game out, but not anymore.
Next turn, he can go for the Lore draw and innovate Savage Roar. He has like three draws to find Savage Roar.
So can we like big game innervate Emperor here?
It seems like the strongest play.
Yeah.
What?
I don't
And you know
think
what?
it's-
If he does that, then there's a possibility that like he has the Force of Nature double Savage Roar combo in a later
that would
turn.
be sick. That would be so sick.
But
Like-
even if he did that, he would have to wait for 2 more turns because Force of Nature without an Emperor reduction plus
Oh, yeah.
double Savage Roar is still 10 mana.
But that's really something Dog needed, like for gaining the tempo back, to, like a Dr. Boom that he can beat DH. But Dr. Boom is still so scary. Might still be lethal.
Okay, so he's going. Okay, so he's really playing around Savage Roar here. I think he was playing around it in that turn where he played the Druid of the Claw instead of the Emperor. So he goes for the same line of play here. Just I guess being consistent with his plays as we
Oh
alluded to.
man, that's just that sucks.
Well, it's kind of okay that the Boombot did that because it very easily could have just won the game.
Is that
This
lethal?
Force of Nature does a lot of damage.
Yeah, with the Wrath. It's
Yeah,
lethal.
it's rough. Yeah.
Quick game here. And you know what? Druid versus Druid, probably not the most exciting matchup. It's probably one of my least favorite to cast simply because we do know who wins usually in the first like 2 or 3 turns.
But most people say actually that Patron Mirror is even worse
Yeah.
because there's like nothing you can do. If someone goes for the like turn 5-6 patrons, you have no like you usually don't have an answer, and it's like over.
You usually don't have an answer, but you can go for you can just try and lethal them with the War Song frothy play.
Yeah.
Sometimes you buy just enough time to do that.
Yeah, like it's usually you don't win or you don't come back, but when the times you do come back, it's like it makes for exciting games at least, right?
I actually really liked that Druid Mirror. I thought there were a lot of interesting decisions made by the players that were like not that obvious and pretty good. Back to the Patron Mirror, one common mistake is when the opponent makes a bunch of patrons, a lot of times clearing them is just like never going to win for you. And you'll see people make that mistake. They'll try and clear the other patrons when it's never going to work, and what they have to do to try to win is set up a War Song frothy lethal.
Yep.
That's a good point. Unfortunately, like there's going to be no patrons in the next match, and it's going to be Dogs Druid against Life Coach's Handlock. And as we mentioned previously, the Handlock is actually slightly favored in that matchup. But then again, like Dog knows that his opponent will be playing Handlock, so that's more of an advantage to him. Also, Life Coach's Handlock is like slightly teched in the mirror again with the double BGH. So again, that's another advantage for Dog. So
That
I would
would
have
be
to
actually-
give Dog the favorite here.
There would be actually interesting stats, like how much it improves the Druid win ratio when you know, like against what type of handlock you or warlock you play.
Yeah, definitely. I think like you can just like kind of think about it because like the only thing that would really change is you keep the BGHs in your deck or in your hand. So you can kind of like think about like if I just keep the BGH on mulligan, what are the chances that I have the BGH when my opponent plays the giant? You can just like
But-
factor that in kind of.
But that's such a big difference as we saw like in the Trump game. Just not having the BGH when he plays the turn 4 giant. Just game deciding.
Yeah, exactly. And not only that, but Tice knew that his opponent was handlocked.
Yeah.
And, like hard mulligan for the BGHs as well. So it's like it's even more upsetting that he never got them.
And this match is so close, 5-5. It's been close. I feel like the whole way. Like the biggest lead was what 3-1 at the start or something. And since then, it's just nail biters the whole way. Lots of close games, big top
even the
decks.
last match, right? It's still anybody's game.
I have to feel like Nihilum's favored just because it's the way things have been going, right?
Like you're cheering for Value Town here because you don't want Nihilum to have a 4-0 record. Like if they get a 4-0 record, like it's probably like it's going to be very hard to catch up to them. Although they'll still have like not a great game differential score because again, like they've gone 6-5 almost every time.
Right.
This could be like the closest series of all in Archon League so far.
Yeah, I mean we've seen a couple of other 6-5s, but it's like this series has just been really back and forth. And a lot of the other 6-5s, it's like this one deck just couldn't get a win, whereas this in this match, pretty much like they've been trading wins.
It would be cooler to see Value Town win, just to make it like the standings as close as possible.
Yeah, you got to root for the underdog, right? I mean, they're a very
Yeah.
slight underdog, but still.
Yeah.
Man, this is like 1 versus 2, game 11. Doesn't get much better than this.
Yeah, I think actually going into like the entire team league, Nihilum was like one of the favorites. Value Town, like some people didn't think of them as one of the favorites because like first of all they weren't like a cohesive team before, and also like a lot of people thought Kibler was like kind of the weak link, having like performed not that well in tournaments. But I think everyone's opinions of Kibler has like certainly switched around in the past few weeks.
Yeah, Master of Duels so far. Nothing to scoff at.
A great performance, right? Even also like bringing Shaman, right, which where most people consider like the weakest class right now.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And he's just showing that it's like so many upsets, right?
That's impressive, yeah. So, what was your favorite game so far, Kara, from this match?
On this match. Honestly, in terms of skill, probably like the Druid. I think the Druid Mirror. I think that
Yeah, the
the
one we
hero
just watched.
power, the hero power and the BGH, right, from Dog. I think that's like a really insane play.
Yeah.
Like how often
How-
do you see something like that?
And how obvious was the coin well growth intending to tempo BGH? I guess that's like fairly standard.
Yeah. Is it? Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
Just curve out. It's a game.
Yeah. My
When you
favorite
play
game was
double
actually
BGH.
like. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no,
My
no, no,
favorite
no.
game.
The
Yeah.
control. So, yeah, control warrior versus handlock. That was like the sickest game
Yeah.
so far.
Definitely. But actually, like, my favorite play of the whole series probably was pretty much probably like Kibler's turn 4 play, where he went for like Flame Tongue Totem into just hero power instead of playing the very obvious coin Fell Reaver. Because that like actually like determined the game completely. And first of all, it let Kibler get an undefeated record, and then it also like set up the entire pace of the entire series. And it was a very like not obvious play, a play that could only be made by a player that practices a lot of mech shaman, which obviously Kibler does for this league.
But that goes same
This
for
is-
the patron win from Life Coach. That setup, like that whole game, how he set up that kill was also insane. Like so, every turn was like insane by him.
We're watching Druid against Handlock, not Rogue vs Mage, right?
Yes.
Wow, that's a pretty good Druid start. Is it the right start for this matchup, though? Innervate Shade, it kind of gets out of Hellfire range.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Still-
but you get a card disadvantage.
Right? But does that matter if you win?
I've actually heard
do you
from
win, though?
some. Okay. I think I've actually heard from some Druid players that you actually don't want Innervate in your opening hand against Handlock. And that sounds kind of crazy to me. I don't know if you guys have opinions about that.
I've heard that. I've heard that you sometimes want to keep Innervate for bursting against Handlock. Also, let me ask you, is there any chance you like Innervate Shredder on 2 into Shade on 3 for a curve instead of going for the turn 1 Shade that's too big for Hellfire?
I think in some matchups you can do that, but it's just like the Hellfire scenario where like it's just way too much value from a Hellfire
Yeah.
if they kill off a 4/3 and a Shade.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's too important to get the shade out of Hellfire range. Then you can leave it up as long as you want, basically. There's a little buggy here.
Yeah, we can't really see what's going on.
You see a lot of shades and shredders and
I
drakes.
see the Druid's cards like before the mulligan. I saw a rope tick, but I haven't seen the Handlock's hand.
Yeah. We also kind of like have to hype up this match in that Dog and Life Coach are two of the most successful players in Black Rock Mountain. Dog has like a 56% win rate in Black Rock Mountain, and Life Coach has a 55% win rate. And they're like both like top 5 or at least top 6 in Black Rock Mountain.
That's kind of
Whoa.
those numbers
So what
are
happened?
okay. We got a game going. This is good. So he did not innervate out the Shade. He decided to save the
Yeah.
innervate for burst maybe later on in the game.
Oh, so he innervated out a. No, I think
Huh?
he innervated out a Shredder, and then he drew
Yeah.
a second innervate.
Yeah.
Right.
Only that makes sense because he has free mana.
So he has to play Shade here, right? He's gonna just play into the coin
Yeah.
Hellfire.
That feels so bad.
And then you can, you can still like innovate lower tap next turn. But it's just better to play the shade now than
Oh
later.
wow.
I think he's like way too scared of the Hellfire.
That's like,
Like we were just.
hyper aggressive.
I think like his hand kind of like dictates that he goes this aggressive though, because he
he's
doesn't
playing-
have like any draw, and he's used both innervates already.
Yeah, but he's playing around the coin Drake here with that play.
Okay. Yeah, the
Which
Loatheb
is-
is key for denying coin Drake. It's funny, one play seems so obvious, but there's always things to think about. So
that's-
I like the Ancient Watcher here.
Yeah, you can't live tap because you will overdraw. So there's just the watcher play. There's nothing else.
Okay, this one is actually a simple play. Good.
But maybe he's thinking about like the whole. Because you
The
have
whole
only
picture.
70 seconds for one turn, he might be thinking about the next turn or something.
Well, he can also
Yeah,
be
exactly.
thinking just to bluff, just to disguise his hand.
I mean,
You-
it's the determining game, right, of the series.
Yeah, this is
Might
for all
as-
the marbles.
Might as well think a little bit.
Previous 10 games are a push. This is what matters.
Oh my god.
That is okay. That like second innovate into Savage Raw was like ridiculous. If he doesn't have a Shadow Flame, it... Hellfire will be. Might be.
Well, like what we were saying before, you sometimes like some players have said that you want to save your innervates for the Savage Roar combo, but now that both innervates have been used, Life Coach certainly has a lot fewer things to think about. Like on turn 7, Life Coach won't be afraid of the combo at all.
It's so important what comes out of the Shredder.
If you Hellfire, do you just die to Savage Roar?
Only if there's like 2 or 3 attack on the minion that comes out, because you have 7.
You need 12 damage, and you
7
have...
plus 3, 11.
No, I think you just die.
You need 1 damage. No, you're dead. Yeah, for sure. You're dead for sure. If you Hellfire, you're dead.
So many
So coin heal, but then you're dead as well, right? Because it's
So we're
you're
seeing
dead.
the advantage of how of Dog's aggressive play. He puts so much pressure on that he's not even scared of
Yeah, that-
Hellfire anymore. He
But
just
that
wins.
only works if you have the Savage Roar.
So is there any way for Life Coach to survive? Maybe an Argus here?
possibilities.
I mean, he has a couple like different defensive plays, right? He has the heal bot, or the Hellfire, or the Taunt. Which one is like? This might be probably the strongest.
All right, so what would Savage Roar do? It would do 6, 11, 14
That's
damage.
14?
So, yeah,
it's lethal?
Dog is... Well, it's 1 damage off lethal, right?
8 plus 6 plus hero power.
Oh, yeah, no,
15.
it is... No, it's 15, yeah, it's 15
Yeah,
damage.
it's lethal, 100%. Why is he? Does he actually think he's 1 damage off? Like
I
there's
don't know,
nothing.
maybe he's just quintuple counting. He's like, this is for everything. I have time. I'll just count and make sure I'm doing everything right.
Alright,
Yup,
yeah.
still lethal.
Yeah. I mean, there's only 1 card that you can play
And-
now.
Whoa, he doesn't see it.
No, he sees it. He
No,
sees
alright,
it. He's
okay,
just
alright,
he's just
alright.
slow rolling a little bit. It's okay.
He just looked. He looked so sad, right? He looked.
Life coach is like, man,
He looked. Oh man, that wow, life coach is really washed.
Dog took such an aggressive line of play, and it totally paid off for him. That was amazing.
Sometimes the stars align.
Yeah. And unfortunately, no team right now is like undefeated in the Archon Team League. Both of these teams go down to, or go up to at least 3 and
3
2
and
right
1.
now. 3 and 1. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Which is like they're tied for first place at least, so that's something that's going well for them at least.
Are these
That
the
was
only
such a
2 teams
close
at 3 and
series.
1? Yeah, until more
Yeah.
games are played.
Well, of course, Archon and Forsten boys, they have the opportunity to go to 3 and 1 either today or tomorrow. That'll certainly be a very exciting series. But as we can see, like again, all the teams are like pretty close. Of course, Valuetown and Nihilum will get an early lead, but there's still 3 more matches for the remainder of the week.
So, do we have a video coming up?
Well, not right now. I think let's go over the match first a bit. I think
Okay.
both teams were like they played really well. So a lot of heads up plays throughout this entire series. From Life Coach, his handlock play was like pretty immaculate. Even though Trump's Control Warrior was in the end able to beat it, I was really impressed with his play overall. His patron play was also really good. What other players? Kibler, I mentioned his Mech Shaman play, especially that turn 4 play where he didn't coin out the Fell Reaver was really good. Dog, even though he lost that Druid Mirror, I thought his swipe or his setting up the swipe turn was really good as well. There's overall like a lot of heads up stuff from players, and I really like to see that in this type of league where players they're just like really playing their best.
So everything, a lot of skill, a lot of top decks.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this series because I felt like there were so many close, interesting decisions that really mattered and really changed the outcome of games. Spots like not dark bombing face with handlock against patron to prevent the weapon swing. Spots like setting handlocks to 10 life and seeing the double molten giant Argus heal bot punish. There were things about like, do you cycle the Wrath to try and draw into BGH? There were a lot of great moments in this match that really showed that Hearthstone's not just RNG, but the skill and decision making just has a huge impact.
Yeah, definitely. I think that does it for the match today. We're gonna have another match for you right after this, but I think we're gonna be joined with a few new casters. So I'm gonna have to say bye to Zalay and Gar for now. And do you guys have any like closing thoughts for the day?
Thanks for having me. It was fun.
Yeah, same for me. Really enjoyed the series and have fun for the next one.
Yeah. So I think that's it for now. So we'll be taking a short break, setting up the match for the next match, and we'll be right back right after these messages.